Introduction to the demon world I designed. Chen Qing, who has been reborn for a lifetime, has become a child of ancient hardship. After 10 years of hard study, he finally achieved the top spot in the imperial examination. He thought he would become a scholar class from then on, but when he married Chen Qing, who had reached the pinnacle of his life with Bai Fumei, he suddenly became embroiled in a mysterious event. It was also at that time that he realized that the world was not simple. There were cannibalistic demons, bewitching demons, and legendary immortals who could grow but were incredibly eerie. What made him even more incredible was these damn things seemed to he designed it all himself. Group number 6321232201, welcome everyone to join the group to discuss the shortcomings of this book, hehe. Chapter 1. Disappearing People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, Chen Qing, why did you come? Mingyue Tower is particularly lively today, only because this year's successful candidates gather here in groups of 3 to 5. This is also a tradition after every 3 years of the imperial examination. Regardless of whether they come from all over the world, as long as they make it to the list, they will have the friendship of classmates, naturally getting close and close, and in the future, there may be multiple paths in the official field. At this moment, a young Xianxia who was stunned at the entrance was pulled into the elegant room by a group of classmates. What's going on here? You're in a daze. Looking at several classmates who had good relationships before the exam, Chen Qing forced a smile, but her extremely poor expression couldn't be concealed. Oh, what's wrong with this? But you're in the 3rd tier. A few people were curious and asked, when passing down the name and singing, everyone was nervous about their own ranking. At that moment, where would they care about others? As long as it's not sung 3 times in the 1st tier, few people will remember someone else's ranking. No. Chen Qing shook his head and smiled bitterly. I'm in the top 131 of the 2nd tier, and I'm lucky to get stuck in the last place. When everyone heard this, they immediately laughed. The last place in the 2nd tier may not sound good, but in the future, career advancement does not refer to specific rankings. As long as the 2nd tier is a Xianxia background and has not fallen to the 3rd tier, then the difference between your last place and the first few is not significant. This is a good thing. Why bother with your face? Aren't you afraid? Chen Qingqiang replied with a smile. A man around 30 years old on the table spoke up. If Chen Qing were to study at the Imperial Academy, the master would definitely have to wait for the article to settle before ending. This time, it was truly thrilling. Brother Lu said. Chen Qing sat down and quickly toasted back. The others pursed their lips slightly upon hearing the words. The only person present, surnamed Lu, was from the Imperial Academy. Of course, they could endure until they had a certain chance of ending up. They were farming and studying in a rural family, and their parents almost sold out their fields to support them. How could they be so leisurely? Of course, we have to leave early. However, this is also the reason why it is difficult for a humble family to come up with a plan. The more anxious you are, the easier it is for you to fail. Seeing the atmosphere somewhat cold, a middle-aged man on the table who looked quite plump and smooth raised his glass and said, as long as the result is good. By the way, have you heard? Cui Tanhua died suddenly yesterday. This statement immediately sparked gossip among everyone, and everyone began to discuss it. It's a pity. Cui Tanhua is only 19 this year, isn't she? She is truly talented, and I heard she was even taken in by the princess. Her future is limitless, but unfortunately. Yes, it's really a pity. Everyone else followed suit, but behind the scenes, there was some gloating. Our son-in-law is not allowed to participate in politics like in the previous dynasty. Having a princess is a very good thing for our future. Cui Yan is handsome and is on the list of young men. If he is valued by the princess, can he not be envied? Everyone was discussing it vigorously, but Chen Qing's face turned even paler when he heard this topic. It was obvious that he was not very interested in this topic, so he began to shift the topic and said, "I heard that this time our Jinshi class cancelled the 6 political views." "Well, there's such a thing," said the middle-aged man from the Guozijian before. "The reason for this year's imperial examination is because the northern region has won a great battle and recaptured Yuzhou. Most of the new candidates in this year's imperial examination will probably be sent to serve as local county officials there. There is a shortage of people there, and the pressure is tight, so we won't have time for the 6 ministries to observe politics." As soon as these words were spoken, a group of people's enthusiasm immediately diminished. All of them were born in the 2nd tier, and the great Jin dynasty had only been established for 20 years. There were many good positions for these new Jinshi candidates. Even if they were not born well and could not stay in Beijing, there was still a chance to be assigned to the prosperous places in Jiangnan. Unexpectedly, a term of Anka gave them the opportunity to advance their academic achievements, but they were also sent to the cold northern regions like Yuyun. For a moment, my mood was depressed and I turned the topic back to the sudden death of Tanhua. After all, no matter how unlucky it is, this guy who died suddenly after hitting Tanhua is not unlucky, is it? The discussion among the crowd was full of gossip, causing Chen Qing to burst into a bitter smile. It seemed that today's topic could not be passed. "By the way, Chen Qing, are Cui Tanhua and you from the same hometown?" "Ah, yes." Chen Qing nodded honestly as he couldn't avoid it. Cui Yan was a great talent in Liuzhou who won 3 consecutive awards. Many local gentry at that time wanted to marry his daughter to him. Cui Yan's choice is not a problem. The middle-aged man from the Imperial Academy nodded and said, with his talent and young and handsome appearance, he should indeed marry in the capital. It is highly possible to find a reliable Yu family, but fate is not as good as fate. From the current results, it seems that it was better to start a family in Liuzhou and maybe even leave some blood for the family. Chen Qing looked up at the other person. "This guy's name is Luiqi. When he first arrived in the capital with Cui Yan, he took the initiative to get to know them. During the preparation period, their relationship was quite good, and they had many interactions. He clearly knew that Cui Yan had a wife. But something strange has happened. Why does he seem to forget that Cui Yan has a wife? Not only did he forget, it seems like everyone has forgotten." Chen Qing frowned inwardly. He had already felt something was wrong the day before yesterday. As soon as Cui Yan hit the Tanhua, it was rumored that the emperor wanted him to become a princess, as if he didn't care at all about Cui Yan's intention of being married. Now it's the same way. Cui Yan died suddenly, and his wife Huang Shi also went missing. However, the officials from Dali Temple who came to inquire asked Cui Yan about many details, but they didn't bother to ask his wife at all. They even mentioned those officials with a surprised expression. Chen Qing was a vigilant person who never mentioned Cui Yan's wife again when he saw this situation. Until now, this person surnamed Lu openly assumed a regretful attitude for Cui Yan's lack of marriage, and the people around him also assumed it for granted. He felt that something was wrong with this matter. It seems that everyone has forgotten about Cui Yan having a wife. What exactly is the situation? Chen Qing was silently drinking, and the more he listened to their discussion, the colder his heart became. Everyone was discussing happily when suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. Everyone put their voices down. After all, there was always a discussion about a deceased person behind them, and it didn't sound good to hear it spread. "Who is that?" Lu Yiqi frowned and asked. The room door slowly pushed open and a young man dressed in a green official robe walked in. Everyone quickly stood up and saluted. When Lu Yiqi saw the person, he was surprised and stood up, saying, "Why did Mr. Wang come?" Chen Qing carefully glanced at the other party. The man in the official robe here looked young, probably even younger than Lu Yiqi, but judging from his official attire, he was already at the 4th grade level. It is said that the promotion in the new dynasty is fast, but this is also too fast. Congratulations to Brother Qi for winning the gold medal. The person smiled and arched their hands, indicating that they were indeed quite familiar with Lu Yiqi. Where, I feel ashamed compared to being your brother. Lu Yiqi smiled and saluted, but his eyes were complicated. The person who came was called Wang Yi, who was his former classmate. The two of them almost entered the Imperial Academy at the same time, but the other person was on the list 2 terms ago and was highly valued by the emperor. Now, in just 6 years, he has become a young minister of the Dali Temple. Looking at himself in his 30s, he relied on his Anka ranking to become a county official in the remote and cold northern region. It is unknown how many years it will take to survive and return to the capital. Chen Qing sighed in his heart, fearing that this person might not have come specifically to congratulate Lu Yiqi. He was wearing an official robe and most likely came to work. Sure enough, the next second the other party politely declined the invitation to the same seat and looked at the crowd, saying, "I wonder who Chen Qing is." Everyone immediately turned their gaze to Chen Qing. Chen Qing's face twitched, knowing that this incident could not be avoided. He approached and said, "Your Highness, late life is Chen Qing. What's the matter with you looking for late life?" The other party nodded and looked at the young Chen Qing, saying, "Regarding Cui Yan's matter, I have some details that I would like to consult with you. Would it be convenient for Chen Jinshi?" "Convenient, convenient." Chen Qing replied with a bitter smile. If he said it was inconvenient, the other party wouldn't look like they could take a break. "Mr. Wang." Lu Yiqi frowned and said, "What is Chen Qing involved in?" No. The other person quickly waved his hand and said, "It's just because they are from the same hometown and have some details to ask. I'm sorry to disturb everyone's interest. Later, Wang will come over to toast and apologize to Brother Lu." Lu Yiqi saw that the other party had given him enough face, and his face turned red. He quickly said, "Zijing, you're welcome. That fool will wait for you here. We won't come back until we're drunk." Okay. The other person smiled and nodded, then waved and took Chen Qing upstairs. Chen Qing followed behind, but his heart became increasingly nervous. He traveled to this feudal dynasty that was completely unfamiliar with history, without any prior knowledge. With a background in engineering, he could only honestly study the classics that humanities students were afraid of. After 10 years of hard study, he was about to enter the gentry class, but encountered this terrible thing. God can't bear to see him being too good, can he? The two of them arrived at a compartment upstairs. After closing the door, the young official invited Chen Qing to sit down and then went straight in, saying, "Wang Yi, am very concerned about the sudden death of Cui Tanhua. I have been appointed to handle this case." Chen Qing quickly bowed and said, "I have seen Mr. Wang. No need to be polite." The other person waved their hand and said, "I have read your testimony today. In the clerk's record, you mentioned that Cui Yan has a wife, right?" "I made a mistake." Chen Qinglian hurriedly said, "I drank too much at the Qianglin banquet the day before yesterday, so when the Shangguan came to ask questions, I was a bit confused. Please forgive me." The other party looked at Chen Qing several times upon hearing this, and finally said with a hint of meaning in their eyes, "The rumor that Cui Tanhua was chosen as the son-in-law by the Holy One is true. They had already sent someone to Liuzhou to investigate Cui Yan's family background. Cui Yan's family background is innocent and he has not married." Chen Qing shook his body upon hearing this, with a hint of confusion in his eyes. He and Cui Yan were studying together at Wuxia, and everyone in the academy knew that Cui Yan was favored by the daughter of Huang Fuzi. The first talented woman in Liuzhou married a young talent who had achieved 3 consecutive years of success. He was a talented and beautiful woman, a beautiful story. How can we find out that the other party did not get married? As you mentioned in your testimony, Cui Yan married the daughter of Huang Fuzi from Liuzhou Prefectural School. Huang Fuzi was a renowned Confucian scholar from the previous dynasty, and the emperor had repeatedly solicited him. However, the other party politely declined the offer due to his old age, and his 2 sons were also officials in the court. His eldest son Huang Wenxuan served as the governor of Yongchuan, and his second son Huang Wenjing was in the Hanlin Academy. He had never heard of his family having a daughter. Chen Qing's heart grew colder and colder. The other party was so serious. Could it be that he had been sleepwalking during the years he had seen at Liuzhou Prefectural School? Wanqing got drunk and caused trouble. I really apologize to adults for delaying their investigation. Wanqing feels ashamed. The other party frowned at the words and asked a few questions. This guy bit him to death and said he was drunk and confused, but he didn't ask much. After all, the other party has a reputation and it's not easy to detain and interrogate without evidence. So he nodded and gave up. As they stood up, Wang Yi suddenly said, "Chen Jinshi, have you encountered anything strange lately?" Strange things. Chen Qing's face twitched. What's more peculiar than one or two of you? That's not true. Why do adults ask so? Wang Yi looked at Chen Qing calmly and said, "Chen Jinshi, if you encounter something strange, don't hide it, it will kill you." Chen Qing. Chapter 2. This story is a bit familiar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Jinshi, if you encounter something strange, don't hide it, it will kill you. When he was appointed the next day, Chen Qing's mind was still constantly recalling yesterday's words from the young minister of Dali Temple. Was the other party warning him or reminding him? If it's a warning to oneself, then is it really a group of people acting intentionally forgetting Cui Yan's wife? But what is the meaning of this? If it's a reminder to myself, did I really go to hell? Chen Qing has returned. Tell us quickly where the official was appointed. Chen Qing regained his senses upon hearing the sound and saw a group of familiar faces. His expression suddenly relaxed slightly. He lived in a Confucius temple in the southern suburbs of the capital, which was a place donated by a great philanthropist in the capital for the underprivileged scholars to stay in during their preparation for exams. As soon as Chen Qing returned, he gathered around a group of classmates who had once endorsed together. Qi County in Yuzhou, I am ranked second to last. What good place can I get? Chen Qing replied with a smile. That's not bad, said one of the chubby and round people. With our family background, being able to become a jinshi and become an official is already like the smoke from our ancestors' graves. How can we still be picky? You and Cui Yan passed the exam on their first visit, not like us. That's right, another tall and thin man also said, our families have some foundation, and we can still provide 1 or 2 meals. Many classmates in this temple have already returned home yesterday, preparing to become teachers at local county schools. Chen Qing also had some feelings upon hearing this. It was not easy for the children of the farming family to study, and how many families could afford to pay for their pens, ink, paper, and inkstones, as well as the expenses of studying in the county and state capitals. Just like myself, when my father passed away early, if it weren't for the good tofu business at home, I wouldn't be able to afford it. However, even so, it has reached the point of selling ancestral property. More than half of the income of my elder brother and sister. Law is used to support me, and my younger sister's dowry has not been paid for yet. If I don't pass the exam this time, it will be difficult for my family to spare the energy to get a few hundred taels to go to Beijing to catch up. By the way, Chen Qing, why hasn't Cui Yan come back with you? We still want to bask in the light of Tanhua. Chen Qing was taken aback and looked at the chubby man who was speaking. His name was Zhou Haitao, and he was also from Liuzhou. He had been preparing to go to the capital with Cui Yan for a year, and he was a classmate who had studied together during his time at the government school. Watching the other party completely unaware of Cui Yan's death, he was moved. Yes, this ancient era is not like modern times. A major event can spread throughout the country in just a few hours. The Confucius Temple is located in a remote area, and the scholars who have been living here are naturally not as well informed as their jinshi. It is normal to not know that Cui Yan has died. Suddenly thinking of this, Chen Qing looked at Zhou Haitao and said, Haitao, Cui Yan is so handsome. Why didn't he propose a marriage? Isn't that nonsense? Zhou Haitao curled his lips and said, he's so talented and good. Looking. Such a capital must go to the capital to find a good father. In Law's family. I won't settle for him either. Upon hearing this, Chen Qing stared at the other person tightly, with a natural expression on Zhou's face that didn't seem to be acting at all. Fatty guy, would Narcissus poetry remember 3 years ago? They all said not to call me fat, even if I become an official, I won't. Zhou Haitao glared at Chen Qing, then frowned and touched his thick chin. What kind of Narcissus poetry club? As soon as these words were spoken, Chen Qing's heart became cold and there was no more chance. 3 years ago, I had just passed the imperial examination and went to Liuzhou to study. That year, there was a once-in-a-decade spring snow in Liuzhou, and the daffodils in the Qinyuan garden in the north of the city bloomed everywhere. Such a magnificent scene was rare, and the governor and a group of teachers organized a grand poetry festival. Cui Yan, who was only 16 years old that time, shocked the audience with a spring snow poem and became famous far and wide. At the same time, he was favored by multiple daughters, and his popularity was extremely high. At that time, Huang Fuzi's daughter fell in love with Cui Yan and asked him to inquire about the marriage. For a long time, Chen Qing complained about this matter. After all, in many historical novels, the leading characters of the time travel show their brilliance in the poetry festival and win the hearts of young girls. Cui Yan has taken the script that should belong to Chen Qing. Unfortunately, in my past life, I was a male engineer who had been focusing on coding for many years after graduation. I had forgotten about Tang poetry, song poetry, and poetry, so I couldn't become a copywriter. After crossing the river, although I switched to studying humanities, studying the classics of scientific research has already taken a lot of effort. How could I still have the energy to study poetry? I can't fit this beep. I just didn't expect that Cui Yan, who took the protagonist's script, would have such a result, let alone that all traces of the past have been erased. Chen Qing looked at Zhou Pengzi's unwavering expression without hesitation, and hurriedly returned to his own room to tidy up and salute. Hey, Chen Qing, what are you doing? Zhou Haitao and a few others chased after them, and when they saw Chen Qing packing up and bowing, they were taken aback. We're leaving now. We're planning to hold a celebration banquet for you. There's no need for that. Chen Qing waved his hand without looking back. This time the local authorities are pressing us hard, and the Ministry of Personnel has only given us 20 days. I have to go back to Liuzhou to pick up my mother and sister. In law, so there's really no time. He didn't lie about this. The time given by the Ministry of Personnel was indeed tight, and it was true that he wanted to go back to Liuzhou to pick up his mother. However, even if he didn't have time for a meal, it wouldn't have happened. I just want to leave this place of trouble as soon as possible, and even quickly pick up my family from Liuzhou, completely leaving the place where there were traces of Cui Yan. He had already thought about it. The climate in Liuzhou is not pleasant, far less beautiful than the mountains and waters in Liuzhou, but the place is good, and living a difficult life is meaningless. He is at least a parent official in Xixian, Liuzhou, and the environment is poor. The people below him are the ones who suffer. As a county official who absorbs the wealth of the people, how much worse will his life be? Moreover, the family's ancestral property has already been sold out, and there is nothing to cherish. When the family receives their own land, their mother enjoys a happy life. They no longer have to push tofu at an old age, and their siblings can also have some small business of their own. They can also find a good marriage for their younger sister, and even arrange for their nephew to study, which is not better than staying in this strange place like Liuzhou. After packing up his things and bidding farewell to Zhou Pengzi and others, Chen Qing hurriedly prepared to set off. As a result, not far from the Confucius temple, he was stopped by a carriage. Inside, a person came down and made Chen Qing's heart skip a beat. It was Wang Yi, the young minister of the Dali temple who asked him yesterday. Oh, that's quite a coincidence, Chen Jinshi. Oh no, it should be called Chen County Magistrate now. Coincidentally, you big-headed ghost. Chen Qing rolled his eyes and bowed. Where are you going, sir? Go to Liuzhou. The other person smiled and said, go and see if the testimony given by County Magistrate Chen is incorrect. Late birth. I have already said that I was drunk and made a mistake. Why do you need to chase after me and not let go? Chen Qing was a bit anxious. What's going on? I can't afford to provoke myself, can't I even hide? Is it a mistake to say that once you go, you will know? Wang Yi smiled and said, I am also from Liuzhou, and I happen to use this as an excuse to visit my relatives. Is Mr. Wang from Liuzhou? Chen Qing frowned. Yeah. The other person put away their smile and said seriously, so, I can't tolerate anything strange, my hometown of cholera. Chen Qing's heart trembled and he forced a smile, saying, Your Excellency's words are quite strange. What is a strange thing? Don't you know, Lord Chen? Wang Yi looked at Chen Qing quietly. I thought you knew. After a few moments of silence, Chen Qing gathered up the courage and asked, What does the adult mean? Wang Yi looked at the other person and smiled again, Get in the car, speak slowly on the way. Chen Qing glanced inside the car with some hesitation. You're not afraid of me, are you? Wang Yi smiled and said, I have a fourth-rank official position. There are more royal guards appointed by the Holy Emperor accompanying me to Liuzhou. Think for yourself whether it's safer for you as a weak scholar to travel alone, or is it safer to follow me? Chen Qing no longer hesitated upon hearing this. The other party was right. If it was really something strange, it would be dangerous to travel alone. After getting on the carriage, Wang Yi drew the curtains and the guards around him, except for the general driving the carriage, tacitly moved away from the carriage. Chen Qing closed his anus and sat a little further away from the other person. Mr. Chen and Cui Yan must have a great relationship when they went to the capital together. They must want to know how he died, right? Chen Qing had a dark face and lowered his head. He didn't want to know that a friend of the dead is not a friend of the poor, and Cui Yan's relationship with him was good or bad. But friends are like this, so if you don't have them, just find another one. But it seems like we can't avoid it. After sighing, Chen Qing could only follow the other person's words and answer, didn't he say he died suddenly? At a young age and having learned martial arts, how could one easily die suddenly? Wang Yi said, he died a miserable death. His stomach was gouged open, and his heart, liver, and kidneys were all gone. How could that be so? Chen Qing looked shocked and said, how could anyone treat a new successful candidate so cruelly under the feet of the emperor? Wang Yi stared at Chen Qing for a long time, then changed his tone and said, has Lord Chen seen the record of strange news from the previous dynasty? Upon hearing this, Chen Qing quickly arched his hand and said, Your Excellency, you're joking. Books from the previous dynasty were all prohibited items, and even lower-ranking officials have read the law. They dare not know that they are breaking the law. What Lord Chen said is also true. Wang Yi nodded and said, then I will make an exception and talk to Lord Chen. Can I not listen? Wang Yi ignored Chen Qing's weak resistance and said to himself, Emperor Xuanzong of the previous dynasty once greatly favored a noble concubine named Lu. She came from a scholarly family and only became famous far and wide. After entering the palace, she was very favored. In just 3 years, Emperor Xuanzong conferred her the title of noble concubine, and even later wanted to depose the current empress and give her a position. And then, Chen Qing looked at the other person with a curious expression, but in reality, he was truly shocked in his heart. This plot you look so familiar. And then she died. Wang Yi said softly, she was poisoned to death. Obviously, she couldn't resist the palace's methods, but something strange happened. What strange thing? Chen Qing followed the other person's words and asked very cooperatively. After the death of Consort Lu, a series of very strange things happened, Wang Yi smiled. Firstly, it was her father, the Minister of Rights, Lady Lu. Later, it suddenly occurred to her that she had never had this daughter. Many people in the capital also remember that the poetry fair Lu Guifei once shown was fake, and her lyrics and poems were all from others. Didn't anyone know before? Chen Qing suppressed the beating in his heart and asked. In theory, it should be known. Wang Yi replied, because those poems were originally the masterpieces that some talented scholars in the capital relied on to become famous. However, strangely enough, since Lady Lu became famous, people seem to have forgotten the original authors of those poems until she was poisoned to death. Do you think this is strange? Yes. Quite evil. Chen Qing swallowed his saliva and forced a smile. Is that right? Wang Yi looked at Chen Qing with a smile and said, but I don't think Lord Chen was that surprised. Or have you seen him before? Or do you know what that is? Your Highness is joking, how could I know? Chen Qing shook her head with a bitter smile and said, it's just that your Highness is speaking too mysteriously. My Highness is subconsciously listening to stories. If I don't speak with strange powers, I won't believe these things. Is that right? Wang Yi looked at the other person for a long time, then withdrew his gaze and closed his eyes, saying, Zibuyu. Is his strange power chaotic? Haha. Kongsheng also lies sometimes. Chen Qing lowered her head, pretending not to hear the other person's disrespectful words. The other person did not continue to ask, and the two fell into silence. In silence, Chen Qing closed her eyes and recalled a memory that she had almost forgotten a long time ago. Although he has been a person for 2 generations, the events of his past life were all over 20 years ago. Now, he feels a bit reluctant to think about the details, but he still remembers some of the details. Xuanzong, Lu Guifei, Jiannian Fox. When the other party mentions him, they know what's going on. Where is this innocent ancient world? It is clearly a world of ghosts and gods designed by oneself. Chapter 3. A world designed by yourself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In my past life, I was a somewhat famous game designer. At the age of 31, I was recruited by Penguin to Tianmei Studio with a high salary and collaborated with another well-known designer to develop a new game. The other party is responsible for designing the background architecture, while oneself responsible for designing the most skilled monsters. After Cui Yan's death, he became somewhat skeptical because the means of erasing memories were too similar to the classic monster he had designed. After all, the magical thing of time travel has happened, and it seems impossible for the game monster he designed to also time travel. It wasn't until the young master of Dali Temple talked about Emperor Xuanzong and Empress Lu that he realized that it wasn't the monsters that followed him through time, but rather that he had traveled into the game world he had designed himself. At the thought of this, Chen Qing in the carriage couldn't help but shudder. If that were the case, he would be lucky to live safely until adulthood. As a designer, he was very aware of how terrifying the things he had designed were. The 1,000-faced fox in the Xuanzong Lu Guifei case is one of the most dangerous creatures he designed. He can't stay any longer. When he receives his mother, he takes a detour to Yuzhou by water. Even if it delays his appointment, he doesn't want to get closer to the capital now. In the palace, several influential senior officials and several founding dukes gathered in this narrow imperial library after the downfall of the dynasty. The new imperial palace is a temporary construction, and its scale is far less than that of the previous one. In order to complete the construction period as soon as possible, the size of the new imperial palace is as economical as possible. The imperial study used by the emperor's office is not much different from the study in ordinary courtyards, which also makes more than 10 people appear particularly crowded in the study. What is your opinion on Wang Ye's report? At the seat of the study, the founding emperor, who was already 65 years old, tapped on the desk with his fingers. The memorial submitted by Wang Yi was unfolding on it, and the respected nobles and officials stood solemnly watching the content on it. Just 20 years after the founding of the country, did those cholera-related things from the previous dynasty reappear? I would like to inform your majesty that Wang Xiaoqing's speculations all come from the testimony of Chen Qing, who later clarified that he made a mistake after drinking. The old minister believes that this should be a misunderstanding. After all, the records in the strange stories can confuse everyone's minds. If everyone doesn't remember Cui Yan having a wife, why does he remember it alone? In the Xuanzong case back then, there was no such exceptional person. The elderly emperor looked at each other. Although they were of advanced age, their eyes were clear and lifelike, without any of the turbidity that an old man should have. It's better to believe in what it has than what it doesn't have. The emperor said in a deep voice, if such a monster really sneaks into the harem, the consequences will be endless. Your Majesty is right, I didn't think carefully. The old man who had just spoken quickly apologized. I have something to say. A handsome middle-aged man walked forward and saluted. The emperor's face immediately improved when he saw this person approaching. What does Lu Aiqing have to say? When the emperor asked the person, everyone else breathed a sigh of relief. This middle-aged man was probably the youngest in the study, but he was the most trusted one in His Majesty's heart. Lu Yu, the Duke of Song, was the chief strategist in the army when His Majesty conquered the world. He had achieved countless remarkable feats and was posthumously appointed as Duke of Song after the founding of the country. He also served as the Grand Secretary of the Wuying Hall. This treatment was unique among the founding fathers. With him taking the initiative to share the pressure, everyone else immediately became much more relaxed. Wei Chen believes that what your Majesty has said is extremely true. This kind of monster has endless harm, and it is better to believe its existence than its absence. However, there is no need to be too nervous at the moment. I think that thing should not have infiltrated the palace yet. Oh. The emperor raised his eyebrows and said, why did Lu Qing say that? Your Majesty, I was very interested in the incident involving Emperor Xuanzong at the beginning, so I thoroughly researched it and came up with many doubts. For example, if that monster could be so magical and change others' memories at will, why not just change the memories of Emperor Xuanzong and other ministers and sit on the throne directly? What kind of king's favor is needed? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present reacted. Yes, the record said that it could easily confuse people's memories without leaving a trace. It was so magical that it could make the Minister of Rites give birth to a daughter out of thin air. Since it was so powerful, why not just turn yourself into an empress? As long as we directly change the memories of the emperor and ministers, why bother with so much? What does Aiqing mean? The emperor narrowed his eyes a little, but still made it clear that his pupils had turned golden. Lu Yu's pupils also changed, becoming a noble purple color. The other people in the room were also affected by the emperor's changing pupils, revealing strange pupils. Whether it's emerald green, ice blue, or crimson, but it's not the color of a normal person's pupils anyway. I believe that what that monster can influence is only ordinary people's memories. Ordinary people's memories. In Liuzhou, the first person Wang Yi visited after arriving was not the governor of Liuzhou, but the general of Liuzhou, Wei Qipeng. The tall Wei Qipeng is 9 feet tall, like a standing human bear. He is out of place with the 4 treasures of the study, but Wang Yi is more like the owner of the study. But the big man's voice was gentle and polite, asking, are you sure, Brother Wang? This is my mentor's speculation. Wang Yi whispered, the imperial family of the previous dynasty had the 9 phoenix bloodline, and the nobles and ministers had a long history of inheritance. Only Tao Xinda, the minister of rites, came from a humble family and was a thoroughly ordinary person. My mentor guessed that it was because of this that the monster chose to be his daughter. Oh, it's Duke Song's guess, that's definitely not wrong. The tall Wei Qipeng nodded first and then said, but since that thing can't change the memories of us people, how can we sneak into the palace? Even if Xuanzong was in the draft, he had to check his background for innocence, right? It should have been set up a long time ago. Wang Yi whispered, when Tao Xianxia was young, he sneaked into his house. If Tao Xianxia's position at that time did not have people like us, it was very likely to be a cover-up. I see. Wei Qiping instantly understood the other person's meaning. There were very few people with bloodlines between them. If Tao Xianxia had worked in a remote place when he was young, it was possible that everyone around him would be ordinary people. In this case, the monster could naturally become his daughter. After Tao Xinda was promoted, she could also follow her father to the capital as a young lady in the boudoir. So, what about those poems? Wei Qiping asked again, how can we deceive everyone in the former capital full of noble bloodlines? Careful arrangement is enough. Wang Yi smiled and said, every time we participate in a poetry fair, we strictly select ordinary people's performances. Before the poetry fair ends, we tamper with everyone's memories and take the poems that have won the championship as our own, which can achieve our own talent. It makes sense, but there is one final doubt. Wei Qiping said seriously, if there really exists such a thing as Cui Yan's wife, it means that someone's memory has also been changed. Upon hearing this, Wang Yi frowned. The other party had been serving as the commander-in-chief in Liuzhou for 5 years. If Cui Yan had married in Liuzhou at that time, the person in front of him would not have been forgotten. That's why I came to see you the first time. Wang Ye's expression also became solemn. If your memory is also tampered with, it means that something is not completely impossible to tamper with the memory of people with strong bloodlines. I'm afraid. It's just impossible to tamper with people with strong bloodlines. If that's the case, that's even harder to prevent. How much time does your majesty give you? A month. Wang Yi sighed, you should know what this means when the crown prince selects a concubine in a month. Upon hearing this, Wei Qiping took a breath. His majesty is already of advanced age, but his sons are not big. The more powerful their bloodline is, the more difficult it is to have an heir. In addition, the crown prince who died in battle before is only 17 years old, which is the age when he has not yet married. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. Unfortunately, when the royal family got married, in order to ensure the purity of their bloodline, they would not mix with other bloodline families and only wanted daughters from ordinary families. That thing killed Cui Tanhua and has lost the opportunity to slowly lay out, but there is still a way to infiltrate the crown prince's selection of concubines. Wang Yi said, for example, if you kill the daughter of a certain minister, you can replace her directly. This way. As long as you change the memory of that family. Wei Qiping also nodded and said, women from the boudoir rarely show their heads. As long as they are well selected, there may not be no chance of being a fish and a pearl. That's why we need to find that monster as soon as possible. This is not easy. Wei Qiping smiled bitterly and shook his head. If it's really that thing, how can we find fish in the sea? Huang's family. Huang family. Wei Qiping was stunned for a moment and said, do you mean? Mr. Huang. You should know. Wang Yi said softly, the Huang family is not an ordinary person either. I do know. Wei Qiping frowned, but that thing can deceive me, and it's not impossible for it to deceive the Huang family. Moreover, it's still uncertain whether that thing actually appeared. Huang Laofu is a great scholar in the world, so you can't act recklessly without evidence. I know. Wang Yi smiled and said, so. I called someone to test it first. Oh. Wei Qiping suddenly became curious. Do you have anyone else who can test Huang Laozi? Who is it? A very interesting young man. Ah. Chen Qing, who had already walked to Huang Fuzi's house on Liuzhou West Street, looked helpless. He really didn't want to get involved in this mess. Chapter 4. The Secret of the Zero-Faced Fox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh, you child, come and come. What are you doing with all these worthless things? A fat woman warmly greeted Chen Qing, but when she received the gift, her eyes were full of disgust, causing Chen Qing to smile awkwardly. Mrs. Huang still as straightforward as ever. Although Huang Fuzi's family is located in a luxurious area of Liuzhou, the mansion is not large, and the servants only have a kitchen and a cook, who is truly a noble scholar. Led by the woman, Chen Qing arrived at the pavilion where the master was painting within a few steps. The pavilion in the backyard and a pond of koi were the most impressive scenery in the Huangfu courtyard. Those familiar with the master knew that he enjoyed painting fish here in his free time. Chen Qing is here. Huang Fuzi saw Chen Qing bowing and put away his paintbrush, quickly boiling tea. Master, I'll do it. Chen Qing quickly took the teapot and skillfully used the charcoal stove next to him to boil the tea. The other party nodded, but did not refuse. They sat down with a smile, while the lady next to them went to the kitchen, obviously preparing some side dishes to entertain them. Did you win the list? How many places? Huang Fuzi asked with a smile. Students feel ashamed, the last place in the second class. Chen Qing awkwardly reported her grades. Oh, good luck. Huang Laozi smiled and said, I used to say that your writing was not steady enough, and I asked you to be stable for a year. If you wait for another 3 years, with your qualifications, it is not impossible to reach the top level. At least you can earn a place in the Hanlin. How could you become a county official in that cold northern region? Students actually want to listen to the master. Chen Qing also sighed. I think so, conditions don't allow it. I have been studying for myself for many years, and all my ancestral land has been sold clean. My eldest brother's nephew has also reached the age to enter school, and my younger sister's dowry is not yet available. If I keep it for another 3 years, I'm afraid even my sister.in.law will have a divorce. County officials, let's just be county officials. 3 years as the Qing governor, 100,000 snowflake silver. As a legitimate county magistrate, it's not too much to make a profit of 1 or 2,000, right? Ah. Huang Fuzi sighed as he spoke, you're lucky, but Cui Yan's child is not lucky. Chen Qing was taken aback for a moment. She was still thinking about how to bring the topic to Cui Yan, but she didn't expect the master to bring it up first. So he exclaimed, yes, Cui Yan is talented and has a bright future. He is also favored by the emperor and is preparing to recruit a son.in.law. He has a great future ahead of him. Haha. Huang Fuzi immediately laughed and said, that kid looks handsome and has the demeanor of an old man when he was young. If I have a daughter, I'm afraid I can't help but recruit a son.in.law. Haha. Master is right, Chen Qing followed with a smile, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. That demon fox can change memories, but many things cannot be changed. After being a daughter to Huang Fuzi for so many years, where is it that just changing memories can erase the traces? The boudoir prepared for the daughter in the yard, the dowry originally prepared, the clothes from childhood to adulthood, and those things cannot be wiped off. Does Huang Fuzi have no doubts at all? Thinking of this, Chen Qing didn't hesitate any longer and said directly, yes, that guy is good. Looking. At the Narcissus Poetry Festival, many girls from prestigious families were interested in him, but he couldn't help but not marry him. As soon as these words were spoken, Huang Fuzi's face across from him visibly stiffened for a moment, and he didn't know if it was an illusion. Chen Qing suddenly felt that the temperature in the entire courtyard had dropped a lot. In the next moment, a demonic wind suddenly arose in the yard, blowing the paintings on the desk all over the sky. Chen Qing was so blinded by the wind that he couldn't even open his eyes. However, he quickly got up to help pick up Huang Fuzi's paintings. After the wind stopped, Huang Fuzi completely ignored the inky desk and immediately took out a mirror from his sleeve to tidy up his beard. Chen Qing is familiar with this scene. Huang Fuzi is a beauty lover, and he always organizes his beard very neatly. If it is a bit messy, he will take out his small bronze mirror that he carries with him to take photos, which is often laughed at by many people in the academy. But this time, Chen Qing, who was organizing the desk, couldn't help but glance at the mirror. Previously, he only believed that this was Huang Fuzi's unique hobby, but now some people don't think so, because if his guess is true, then this mirror is highly likely to be something else. Huang Fuzi carefully tidied up his beard and placed the mirror directly on the desk. He didn't know if it was intentional, but the mirror was facing Chen Qing. "What did you just say about poetry?" Huang Fuzi looked puzzled. "Why haven't I heard of it?" "Have you never heard of it, master?" Chen Qing looked puzzled and said, "It's strange. Hai Tao also said he hasn't heard of it. Did I really remember it wrong? It shouldn't be. You little boy. Your poetry is so pitiful that you still remember some inexplicable poetry club." Huang Fuzi sneered, "I don't think it's embarrassing." Cough. Chen Qing lowered his head and coughed lightly, but his heart became increasingly cold. Does the Poetry Society pretend not to know? The Narcissus Poetry Festival cannot be completely erased. The Fox Demon can erase all the memories of those present, but it cannot erase the people on the periphery. There are many people who have not attended the Grand Poetry Festival but have heard of it. A little investigation will reveal. I and Cui Yan have been in Beijing for almost a year, and many new students have come to the academy, along with those who were unable to attend before. Haven't anyone mentioned this? Has this teacher in charge of teaching not heard any rumors? It seems that most likely as Wang Yi guessed. After chatting for almost half an hour and leaving lunch, Chen Qing bid farewell. After leaving, Huang Laozi went straight back to the study and placed the previous bronze mirror on the desk. A strange thing happened in the next moment, and he saw that the mirror had grown a strange mouth and started talking. That kid remembers. Huang Fuzi nodded and said, "It seems that Ali has been exposed, which is the reason for this Chen Qing. Have you seen clearly that he really has no bloodline? Upon closer inspection, it can be seen that the mortal body's fortune is not very good, and there should be no accidents. It is likely that he will serve after reaching the rank of 5th grade governor, and there will not be much future for him." Huang Fuzi nodded. Mr. Jing's ability to see people's fortune has been verified multiple times and he never makes a mistake. This is also why they are betting on Cui Yan. Ali's path is too shallow, and practicing at a normal pace cannot catch up with the crown prince's selection of concubines. The royal Xiao family has a golden and black bloodline, and Xiao Yan's ability to become the crown prince is truly pure. With Ali's previous path, he can be recognized as a demon before approaching. The thousand-faced fox clan has the ability to rely on the combination of yin and yang to seize people's luck. Cui Yan has the talent to dominate and assist, and his fortune is extremely prosperous. The mirror once predicted that his future will not be weaker than the current popular young minister Wang Yi of Dali Temple. So the original plan was to seize the essence of Cui Yan after he fell in love with Tanhua, so that Ali could break through and barely participate in the selection of the crown princess without being detected. If all the essence hosts were taken away, they would naturally die suddenly. In order not to be discovered, Ali cautiously set aside Cui Yan's stomach, ate his liver and kidneys, and transferred the investigation direction of the royal family. However, to his surprise, this little scholar who came with Cui Yan could remember everything. "Anyway, this person is a threat, we have to get rid of him." The voice of the mirror was sinister. "I don't know if it's an illusion, but that kid was observing it both intentionally and unintentionally just now, as if seems like seeing something." Huang Laozi looked in the mirror and frowned. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to part with a student, but he felt that the other person's sudden mention of the Narcissus Poetry Society just now didn't seem like that kid's usual cautious personality. Could it be deliberately probing oneself? It's not wrong. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net should be mirror demon. Chen Qing's face couldn't help but become excited as he walked out of Huang Fuzi's mansion. After confirming that Qianyan Fox and Huang Fuzi were entangled, he began to suspect that this person dared to cooperate with that terrible thing, and what was the basis for it. The thousand-faced fox is one of the most dangerous monsters designed by oneself. It can not only disrupt people's memories, but also steal their essence through the combination of yin and yang. The more one interacts with people with strong luck, the faster their evolution speed will be. This is also why these monsters will try their best to infiltrate the royal family, because there is no person in the world with stronger luck than the emperor. As long as she can have more interaction with the emperor, the thousand-faced fox will have the opportunity to evolve to the highest form of the nine-tailed fox. At that time, everything will be clear, and no bloodline can resist her memory control. Not to mention being an empress, no one will oppose being an empress. Conspiring with this monster is much more unreliable than scheming with a tiger. But it would be different if there were mirror demons. That is one of the few beings that can restrain the thousand-faced fox, not be swayed by any illusions in the sky, can remind its owner at any time, and can also recognize anyone's heel. As long as it is illuminated by the mirror demon, the person's chi, heel, and blood can all be recognized by you. It is the most functional among the 76 self-designed demon tools. At this moment, Chen Qing's heart was filled with an extremely strong desire to seize. With this thing, his safety will be greatly improved in the future. Even if monsters approach, he can know the enemy's details in advance and take precautions in advance. The original agreement with Wang Yi was that he would help to uncover Huang Fuzi's secrets, and Wang Yi would send a royal guard to escort him to the north to serve. Now it seems that we need to change our itinerary. Chapter 5. Family, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Brother Qing, according to time, will you be back in these 2 days? When Chen Qing was still outside the courtyard, he heard the familiar voice of his sister-in-law. He had a rare opportunity to eavesdrop on the corner of the wall, so he paused and stopped outside the door. The woman with a thick waist, round arms, and yellow skin in the courtyard was none other than Chen Qing's sister-in-law Luo Xiu. Looking at the familiar figure, Chen Qing's eyes flashed with a hint of confusion. I still remember when I had just started my studies, and when my sister-in-law married in, she was pure and delicate, not like the daughter that the Zhuang family could raise. It is said that the sister-in-law is the youngest daughter in her mother's family and is extremely favored. She has never worked in the fields since childhood. Perhaps even the Luo family did not expect that after their daughter marries, she will be polished into this kind of life in just 10 years. I should be back in the next few days. The voice of the reply was my own mother. She is not actually very old, only in her early 40s. If we were to play in a scene where many top celebrities are still competing for girls in the brothel at this age in modern times, but at this time, the woman in the courtyard looks extremely weathered. Some people may believe that she is a 60-year-old woman. Chen Qing looked heartbroken. If it weren't for his own education, the Chen family with 50 acres of fertile land, even if their father was gone, should have been living very well. How could they have forced the whole family to move to the county town and grind tofu for a living? Since ancient times, the 3 major hardships have been forging iron, rowing boats, and grinding tofu. How many years have they been? My mother and sister-in-law are so old that I can hardly recognize them myself. Soon. My mother smiled and poured the prepared bean curd jelly served with sauce into the bean curd rack covered with gauze, expertly packed and compacted, and was doing the final process of bean curd. Mother, the sister-in-law asked while helping, Brother Qing is about to become an official. Why are you working so hard? Isn't it okay to waste the dozens of pounds of soybeans I bought a few days ago? The old lady chuckled and said, just push this one last time, my wife. After this one, everything will be good. Yes. Luo Xiu replied with a smile, but her eyes were filled with anxiety. When she entered the door, this mother-in-law comforted herself like this. When Qingge became a scholar, our good days came. Our family has more than 50 acres of good land, but it was Qingge's father who became a scholar and became a teacher that slowly earned the family fortune. So he helped himself to go to the fields, working tirelessly to strive for a better future. Qing has indeed been admitted as a scholar, but the promised days are different from what her mother-in-law began to say. Daughter-in-law, listen to me. Our young brother, who is 12 years old, looks like a young talent in the imperial examination. We can't just be satisfied at this moment. We need to continue to support him. If he is admitted to the imperial examination, his life will be different from that of a typical village scholar. Not to mention becoming an official, at least he is also a county school teacher. He should be dignified. You also need to think about your child. If you have a young uncle in the imperial examination, won't your child have a place to study in the future? After 2 years of hard work, when she heard her mother-in-law's promise not to fulfill it, she was going to get angry. But later on, when she heard the other party say this, it seemed very reasonable. If my uncle passed the imperial examination, whether it was studying or finding a way to help her children, it would be much easier to rely on my uncle. Moreover, if a daughter is born and married with the support of a Juran uncle, she can also marry better. At this thought, she continued to endure. Qing lived up to expectations and really passed the imperial examination. But the ideal good life has not come yet. Not only has it not been good, but it has become even worse. In order to support Chen Qing's education in the government and rush to the capital for exams, the family's foundation has almost been emptied, and even 50 acres of good land have not been left for himself and her husband, selling them all. The family moved to the county town, rented a remote small house, and started grinding tofu. This grinding lasted for another 3 years. Daughter-in-law. The old woman wrapped all the tofu and smiled as she took the other person's hand and found a place to sit down. This tone was incredibly friendly, but it made Luo Xiu stand up with goosebumps all over her body. Because every time my mother-in-law fools me into continuing to be a bull or a horse, it's like this tone Qing has already passed the imperial examination. She has never read a book, but she also knows that reading and passing the imperial examination is the end of it, right? Is it difficult or not? What else is there to say? Daughter-in-law, our young brothers are doing well. Yes, my mother is right, my dear brother has great achievements. Luo Xiu replied with a smile, but her heart was full of vigilance. Qingge has become an official, and our family's good days are just around the corner. Luo Xiu was taken aback. Why are the good days still ahead? Well, I heard from Master Huang that our elder brother is not steady yet. At most, we will take the same Jinshi background. Most of the same Jinshi are set aside in a remote place to be a supervisor of the county, which is enough for our family. But my elder brother is promising, and according to the people who reported the good news, he got the 2nd grade. What's wrong with Jiao? Luo Xiu spoke a bit too much. This 2nd tier is very likely to stay in the capital as an official. The old woman looked excited and said, this capital is a good place. There are many good things under the feet of the emperor. In the future, our family and my elder brother will stay in the capital together, and maybe your child can go to the Imperial Academy. Eerie can also choose someone in the capital in the future. Choosing anyone is stronger than Liuzhou. Really? That's really a good thing. Russell replied with a smile, but there was no hint of joy on his face. But. Russell's face instantly collapsed. She knew there was but. This capital is the place where the emperor lives. Every inch of land is worth every penny. My elder brother has just become an official and his salary is not enough. Our tofu craftsmanship cannot be lost yet. We need to get a house in the capital, right? Haha. Russell's face turned pale. She finally understood that she and her husband had to buy a house for Chen Qing in the capital. How many years would it take to buy a house in the capital? As soon as Russell's pale face turned pale and he was about to explode, Chen Qing, who was eavesdropping at the door, quickly coughed lightly and said, "Mom, I'm back." "Brother Qing." The old woman looked surprised and didn't even bother to continue fooling her silly daughter. Lol. She hurriedly ran over and grabbed Chen Qing, saying, "Why are you so thin? It's hard for you, my child." The sister. Law behind her rolled her eyes. "Your eldest son, who went to deliver goods before dawn, is not pitiful and pitiful. Chen Qing, who is delicate and tender, thought he was a young master raised by someone else. What makes him look like he has suffered? Has Qingge returned?" Because of her mother. Law's words just now, she was not as enthusiastic about the returning Xianxia master as she had imagined. Instead, she said with a playful smile, "I heard from your mother that you have achieved great success and want to become an official in the capital." Looking at her sister. Law's expression of wanting to go crazy, Chen Qing smiled bitterly in her heart. "It's been a long time since we've seen each other, and my mother's pancake drawing skills are still so good." She still wants to deceive her sister. Law. If it were modern, it would be a good entrepreneurial qualification. No, no, no. Where in the capital can you stay if you want? The county officials on the northern side I assigned this time are here to pick up a family. County official. Or the north. Before the sister. Law could react, the old lady was surprised first. "Oh my, the person who reported the good news said you were a second-class Xianxia master. How could you? Why didn't you stay in the capital? But who did you offend?" In order to prevent Huang Fuzi from secretly hiding, Chen Qing's mother often gave gifts to Huang Fuzi's family. She also heard Huang Fuzi talk about many scientific examinations. According to him, the new dynasty lacked people, and even if Qing Gur only passed the imperial examination, he was likely able to become an official in a place with clear mountains and clear waters. If he could pass the second class, he would probably be able to stay in Beijing. "Mother," Chen Qing quickly explained, "this year's imperial examination is an imperial examination, which was opened by the emperor to supplement officials in the north. Except for one class, no one can stay in Beijing." "Oh, how could that be?" The old woman stomped her feet in a hurry and kept muttering, "If I had known, would have listened to Huang Fuzi. Let's endure for another 2 years and make you wait for the next subject. It's all your brother's fault. You said you've been studying for so many years, so anxious for so long." The sister. Law beside her almost had a crooked nose upon hearing this. Fortunately, she advised her not to let her own ghost continue to listen to his mother, otherwise the whole family would have to cook a house in the capital for this young uncle. Chen Qing also forced a bitter smile and quickly advised the old lady, "Mother, what's good about staying in the capital? Sesame and mung bean officials are everywhere that can't be provoked. They can't even afford to rent a house with low salaries, and they can be sent to the county. Your son is the eldest in the county." "What do you mean?" "Our family lives in a spacious county government office, isn't it good?" "What's good about it?" The old woman gave her son a white glance and said, "There are many benefits in the capital. Although it will be difficult for some years, good days are ahead." The sister. Law rolled her eyes upon hearing this, and now that she heard the good days ahead, she wanted to hit someone. Chen Qing also comforted the old lady with a funny expression on her face for a long time, then looked at her sister. Law and said, "Sister-in-law, where are Yonga and Eerie?" The sister. Law came in and gave birth to a son and a daughter for her elder brother. She had been struggling with her studies for so many years. Although it was painted by my mother, the Chen family owed her a real debt. Besides, just being deceived by my mother to pay off those dowries was enough for her. We need to make up for it in the future." Yonga and his father went to deliver the goods early in the morning, while Eerie and Wuxia were embroidering in the room, replied the sister. In Law with a pout. Chen Qing was taken aback. How many years old is eerie already skilled in embroidery? Such a small girl, learning that every day doesn't make her eyes burn. Chen Qing sighed in her heart and hurriedly said, "Sister-in-law, please tidy up and go directly to the dock to find Big Brother. Tell him not to deliver the goods today and come back for a reunion dinner. Tomorrow morning, he will set off to my place." So urgent. The old lady was taken aback and said, "What about the tofu I just made in the yard? Let's sell it to Aunt Lu next door at a cheap price." Chen Qing smiled and clenched his mother's hand, which was covered in calluses. Pacifying himself, he sat down and said, "The northern side is urging us urgently, and we can't afford to delay it either. Take office early and get familiar with it. When we get there, don't grind tofu. If you're bored, take care of the county's backyard and make it look like anything you want. Don't you envy Huang Fuzi's pond of koi? Let's also keep a pond." The old woman heard her son say that raising koi would brighten her eyes, but she was still unwilling to say, "Can't you really stay in Beijing?" "I can't keep it." Chen Qing chuckled and shook his head. If he had been a bit ambitious before, he might have found a way to stay in Beijing and join the 6 ministries. Now, he has no idea at all. The things he designed love to run to bustling places. Wancheng and Xianxia are definitely disaster-stricken areas. Now, he can hide as far as possible. My sister-in-law also asked Arya and Yonggu to tidy up. Chen Qing turned to look at her sister-in-law and said, "When we arrive over there, I will arrange for Yonggu to attend county school. That child will start late, but it's okay. I will personally teach when I have free time. Our family must provide for the second successful candidate to come out." "Good, good." The sister-in-law's eyes burst into laughter as she listened. Although their family had suffered a lot from studying for Chen Qing in recent years, if it was for her own son, she would have endured no matter how hard it was. "Arya is still young, let's take her over and slowly teach her some rules. If it doesn't work out, I'll find a nurturing mother to teach Arya. Anyway, we need to find a good family with some foundation for her." Where do you need to hire a nanny to spend so much money?" The sister-in-law rubbed her hands when she heard this, feeling embarrassed. However, she was also very moved. After suffering for so many years, she didn't want her daughter to suffer like this. Her daughter was also a piece of her own flesh, and naturally hoped that she would live well in the future. "It won't cost much." Chen Qing smiled and said, "I have always remembered the help from my elder brother and sister-in-law for so many years. You can rest assured that with me, Chen Qing, in the future, your family will never be wronged again." "What you're saying?" The sister-in-law's eyes turned red. "As a family, it's not fair to say these things. A big stone in my heart was finally let go of in my uncle's words. The thief mother-in-law had been deceiving me for many years, and 9 out of 10 sentences couldn't be true, but only one sentence was true. Chinga is not an ungrateful person. When I thought about it, all the grievances before dissipated in an instant. After waiting for so many years, I finally saw the good days that the thief mother-in-law talked about. You will depart tomorrow morning and take the waterway. The court has sent specialized guards to escort you. With their proof, you can also live directly in the county government office. Save some of your family's money for now, and wait for my son to come over before we can discuss everything. You're not with us?" both the old lady and sister-in-law asked in surprise. "Ah." Chen Qing smiled and said, "There's a task assigned to me from above. Once I finish here, I'll rush to take office immediately. You don't have to worry, go and live there first." "Arya." The old woman looked at Chen Qing in confusion. What kind of job is more important than taking office? "It's okay, it's not a big deal, it's just that we don't have enough manpower. Can you help an adult?" Chen Qing still smiled and comforted her mother. But in his heart, he became even more determined. A good day for the family was right in front of him, and he didn't allow anything to threaten his family. Chapter 6. The Power to Resist Demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not leaving. I'm not leaving. Chen Qing looked at this guy who had already anticipated his arrival in the general's mansion and felt inexplicably uncomfortable, but he still said honestly, Your Excellency is right. It's useless to avoid many things. I'm hiding from others, they may not be hiding from me. If they succeed, they won't let me go. After pausing for a moment, he said, and the Lord is highly valued by the Holy Emperor. If the Lord doesn't want to hide from me, I won't be able to hide from you. Hey, don't make me so harsh, Wang Yi laughed suddenly. But it would be best if Lord Chen could figure it out. Chen Qing drank tea silently without answering, continuing to express her dissatisfaction. He always feels that this person surnamed Wang will have a lot of trouble in the future. If we can avoid dealing with him this time, it's better not to deal with him well in the future. Seeing the other party's cold attitude, Wang Yi didn't care and directly asked the main question, Can you really remember the appearance of Cui Yan's wife? Yes. Chen Qing respectfully said, I will go to the capital with Cui Yan. During the preparation period, Cui Yan's wife has been responsible for taking care of Cui Yan's daily life. I have seen him many times, and I have never forgotten his appearance. Wang Yi rubbed his fingers upon hearing this and asked in a low voice, Mr. Chen, since you have decided to fully participate in this matter, it's best not to conceal some things. How dare you conceal the official's position? Chen Qing coldly withdrew and immediately looked fearful. Mr. Chen, don't be nervous. Wang Yi quickly smiled and comforted, I just want to know, Mr. Chen, have you ever found anything special about yourself from childhood to adulthood? Chen Qing looked puzzled and said, I have been mature since I was young. Due to my father's careful guidance, I have been smarter than other children in the village since I was young. The teachers who have taught me all say that I have a talent for reading. Besides this. What does the adult mean? Chen Qing shook his head and asked in confusion, I have never worked in agriculture since I was young, and my face looks better than the people around me. Of course, it definitely cannot compare to Cui Yan. Wang Yi chuckled angrily and said, You're quite self-aware, and you know you can't compare to Cui Yan. I always seek truth from facts, Chen Qing said solemnly. Wang Ye's face twitched and he exchanged a glance with Wei Chipping sitting opposite, who nodded slightly. It has been investigated multiple times and Chen Qing's family background is innocent. At least 5 generations of his ancestors were farming families, and his father's generation was a scholar. The family's bloodline has never left the territory of Longquan County, so there should be no inheritance of bloodline. Since Lord Chen is so confident, then I will report to the Emperor that the selection of the Crown Princess will proceed as usual. Upon hearing this, Chen Qing quickly stood up and saluted, saying, With such a heavy burden, I am in fear, but since I have received great favor from the Emperor, I will do my best and never shirk it. Good spirit. Wang Yi patted his hands and smiled, the court needs a hot-blooded man like Lord Chen. Alright, it's getting late. Lord Chen, go to the guest room to rest, and we'll return to the capital tomorrow. Yes. After Chen Qing bowed and withdrew, Wei Chipping, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up, Is this the interesting kid you said? Wang Yi smiled and said, It's very interesting, isn't it? This guy is clearly hiding something, but I've used all the means, but I can't find any trace. A hint of hesitation flashed on Wei Chipping's face. He was wondering if it was just you thinking too much. Isn't he just a very normal scholar? Having a pure family background and an average performance, is there such a possibility? Wei Chipping whispered, since that thing can change memories, perhaps Chen Qing's memory was also deliberately left by the other party. There's no need. Wang Yi shook his head and said, if the other party just wants to infiltrate the harem, then not startling the snake from the beginning is the best choice. As long as it doesn't associate with the thousand-faced fox, the selection of the crown princess will continue as usual. Why bother with such a complicated set? That's true. Wei Qiping nodded as he touched his chin, but I really don't feel any blood power in him. It's a bit strange to be able to see through the illusion of the thousand-faced fox. Yeah. Wang Yi also nodded, without any bloodline power, but also able to see through the thousand-faced illusion technique, which he had never heard of in foreign body records. If Chen Qing really has the ability to see through 1,000 faces, then protecting his safety and returning to the capital is the top priority. Why did he deliberately let him go and scare the snake? Wang Yi smiled and said, if we were just letting Chen Qing recognize him, we wouldn't have let him leave the capital in the first place. If we wanted to catch him, of course we would have uprooted him. Huang Fuzi is a great Confucian scholar from the previous dynasty, and his status is not ordinary. As you said, there is no absolute evidence to move lightly, but if. At this point, Wang Ye's smile slowly disappeared, and his eyes became cold. If this great Confucian scholar is a hidden demon in the human world, should we let him stay here forever? This. Wei Qiping was taken aback and said, it's unlikely, isn't it? What's impossible? Wang Yi sneered, General Yuqi forgot about the Chen Qing so quickly. King Qin. Wei Qiping's face turned black. This name was a taboo. When the kings were competing for power, the king of Qin was most likely to compete in the Central Plains. But who could have imagined that the future emperor followed by many bloodline families was actually a great demon? Can Huang Fuzi take action? This was also the first question that Chen Qing thought of when he returned to his room. He was very clear that Wang Yi had asked him to test Huang Fuzi's purpose, which was to startle the snake. Through the test, he was also very clear that Huang Fuzi, who had taught him for 3 years, was by no means an ordinary person. That person named Wang Yi is not a good person. He used himself as bait to lure Master Huang to take action. Master Huang is a great scholar and it is difficult to capture without evidence. As long as he can force the other party to take action, Wang Yi has a reason to take someone. He really doesn't want to participate in this kind of thing, but he has no choice. In this world, there are some things that he can't just avoid. Since he can't avoid them, he must strive for the maximum benefit. First of all, it's information. He needs to know to what extent this world, the means of combating demons, has developed. Taking off her coat and nestling in bed, Chen Qing struggled to recall the details of designing this world with another partner. The things designed by oneself are very scary. Many varieties, as long as the environment is suitable and they evolve to their ultimate form, have the terrifying ability to end a civilization. In the beta version, countless inner players are tormented to the point of immortality, greeting their families in the comment section. The partner responsible for designing the world background needs to design a corresponding worldview to balance the monsters designed by Chen Qing, such as how people in this world survived the ravages of those monsters before the player arrived. He remembers that before players arrived, NPCs in the game world relied on something called bloodline power to resist demons. In the background, the power of demons is too strong for the fragile human race to resist. To be able to resist demons, it requires the power of demons themselves. After the chaos, some humans mixed with demons stood up and made a way out with their strong demon bloodline. It was also in a certain event that those who could move mountains and destroy the world fell asleep, providing a brief period of civilization development for the human race. That is to say, the human race, relying on their dormant and terrifying bloodline, barely suppressed the relatively low-level demons that are still active in the world, and achieved a balance. In the original world background, there was no great Jin dynasty, and Chen Qing was very clear about this. Players were born after the Qianmian Fox incident in the previous dynasty, and some dormant things gradually woke up, breaking the balance. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net. The human purgatory once again descended, and players must master enough power within a limited time to change their lives for the human race. This is the background of the previous design. The world where Chen Qing is currently located is definitely not available to players, otherwise it would have been chaotic long ago. How could there be any new dynasty? But Chen Qing was very puzzled. If there were no players, how could the human race survive? The history of the former dynasty has been destroyed, discussions among the people are prohibited, and any act of privately storing books from the former dynasty is punished as treason. I have no information about it, but the peace in this world is true. I have been in this world for more than 20 years and have not seen. I have not even heard of the so-called demon events. If it were not for this involvement in Cui Yan's matter, he may have always believed that this was an ancient dynasty with parallel time and space. What happened back then? How are those awakened monsters doing? How did the human race survive and establish a new dynasty? What are the people who control the court now? What power does it possess? He knows nothing in this context. Knowing nothing is very passive. Since we have been involved in this incident now, let's take this opportunity to observe carefully. This is a rare opportunity. On the one hand, there are newcomers from the court, and on the other hand, there are great scholars left by the previous dynasty to associate with demons. What kind of power do they both hold? Without player intervention, does this new dynasty have control over the power systems that originally needed to be developed by players, as well as the powers beyond bloodline power? If mastered, how many points have you mastered? And then there's the mirror demon. Chen Qing's eyes lit up as he thought of this. If given the opportunity, that thing would definitely come in handy. As a designer, he knew very well that among all power systems, there is one system that is the most difficult but also the most comprehensive. If he wants to take that path, the mirror demon is an excellent auxiliary prop. Chapter 7. Surprise. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh, Mr. Chen got up quite early. Wang Yi left the yard and saw Chen Qing practicing early. He looked at the still dark sky and praised with a smile. The third watch lights and the fifth watch rooster. Chen Qing wiped his sweat and responded with a smile, I haven't taken office yet, and my reading habits haven't changed yet. It makes adults laugh. Everywhere, it's like this. Wang Yi also smiled gently, obviously recalling his years of hard study. Mr. Chen's morning exercise just now was quite interesting. Is there anything famous about it? The 9th set of radio gymnastics was taught by a Taoist who passed by the village before, saying it can strengthen my body and keep fit. Oh. The 9th set. It looks a bit interesting. Wang Yi rubbed his chin and recorded all the movements he had observed the other person before, then said again, You haven't used breakfast yet, have you? Let's have some together. It's better to be respectful than obedient. After the exercise, Chen Qing also felt hungry and didn't refuse. When the two of them went to the front yard for dinner together, he saw that Wang Yi was still the only one. Chen Qing immediately asked, Isn't the general at home? He remembered yesterday that the other party had said that he and others would set off early this morning to return to Beijing, escorted by General Wei Chipping along the way. Wang Yi ate breakfast and said nonchalantly, Commander-in-Chief likes to eat raw meat. Eating together may affect our appetite. Ah! Chen Qing was taken aback and suddenly exclaimed, General. General, do you still have this hobby? Wang Yi looked up at the other person. From his expression, it seemed that he really didn't know anything. Did he really think too much? Hurry up and eat, we'll be on our way soon. When Chen Qing heard the words, she nodded carefully and quickly ate the porridge in the bowl. The expression was incredibly natural, even Wang Yi couldn't pick out any flaws, which is truly attributed to Chen Qing's natural acting skills that he had trained since pretending to be a child. However, in my heart, I feel a bit gloomy. Most people with bloodlines have retained some of the animalistic nature of their primitive bloodlines, while those who love to eat raw meat have more dangerous bloodlines. If I don't pay attention, I will lose my humanity and fall into demons. He doesn't really like this kind of person protecting him. After finishing breakfast and drinking clear tea, in about 15 minutes, a tall figure walked out of the inner hall, and it was Wei Qipeng. Chen Qing quickly stood up to salute and carefully looked at the other person. Last night in the study, he couldn't see it very clearly. It was only then that he could see clearly. Wei Qipeng was at least 2 meters tall and had an incredibly strong physique, but unfortunately, his face looked like a white and clean young man, looking quite strange, giving the impression that two people were together. Mr. Chen, there's no need to be too polite. Wei Qipeng replied to the Confucian scholar's salute, his voice so gentle that it didn't look like a warrior at all, causing Chen Qing to be taken aback again. This strange combination reminded him of Ne Zha from the 100,000 Cold Jokes Wait, Neza. Chen Qing's heart suddenly surged, but he saw that the other party had already led the way to the door and said, "The carriage is ready. If Lord Wang has no other instructions, shall we set off now?" Wang Yi looked at the sky and nodded, saying, "Okay." After getting on the carriage, Chen Qing and Wang Yi were still in the same position as when they arrived. They looked at each other in the carriage, but the difference was that the person responsible for driving the carriage outside was no longer the royal guards, but the chief soldier with armor. "What's wrong with Lord Chen?" Wang Yi looked at the other party accidentally. He found that Chen Qing's face was obviously not very beautiful after getting on the bus. Could it be that the kanji just had a bad stomach? "Mr. Wang. Where are the guards you brought from the capital?" Chen Qing said with a calm expression. "Did Lord Chen forget?" Wang Yi laughed and said, "In order for you to stay and help me, all my guards have gone to protect your family's place. So that means there are only 2 guards given by the emperor to Lord Wang." Upon hearing this, Wang Yi rolled his eyes and said, "That's the royal guard. How many do you want? It seems that Lord Wang is very powerful. The emperor can rest assured that you, a weak scholar with 2 or 3 guards, have come to investigate such a dangerous case. Is Lord Chen testing me?" Wang Yi smiled and said, "What do you want to know?" Chen Qing took a breath and looked at the other person seriously, "I want to know how powerful Mr. Wang is." Seeing the other person's serious attitude, Wang Yi was taken aback and immediately said, "Are you afraid, Lord Chen?" "You don't have to worry, Lord Wei Qipeng is very reliable." Seeing that the other person's face was still not very attractive, Wang Yi explained with a smile, "Don't worry, you don't know the way here. Lord Qipeng was born into the Jinpeng Yuqi family, and every generation of young family leaders in the Yuqi family named him Peng. If he inherits this name, he will be the strongest person in the Yuqi family. Despite Lord Yuqi's youth, there are not many opponents in the world." Chen Qing took a deep breath upon hearing this and slowly closed her eyes. Of course, he knew that the Yuqi family had 800 bloodlines, and the Tianping bloodline of the Yuqi family was of the highest quality. Each generation of family leaders would become one of the generals of the Tiandu Zhu kingdom. "But, so, Lord Wang, is your reliance on Lord Wei Qipeng? Isn't that enough?" Wang Yi chuckled. Chen Qing let out a sigh in her heart and slowly reached out to grab Wang Ye's hand, while her other hand wrote what she wanted to say in the other person's palm. Wang Yi was initially puzzled, but the next second his face changed dramatically. Because he felt the words written by the other party, the content was very frightening. "Wei Qipeng. It's fake. Has the person already set off?" In Huang Fuzi's study, a figure even taller than Wei Qipeng stood opposite the desk, wearing thick armor and a bronze mask resembling a demon statue. His breath was so cold that it was like a ghost general walking out of the underworld. Huang Fuzi, on the other hand, was even more eerie. At this time, there were no pens, ink, paper, or inkstones on the desk, but scattered puppet parts such as arms, thighs, and head. If there are students, they will definitely be scared because the head of the puppet is the usually harsh Mrs. Huang. At the end of the Yin dynasty, we had already set off, and at the speed of ghosts and horses, we were now almost outside the city. Are you sure? Huang Fuzi looked up and said, he is Lu Yu's disciple who closed the door. The ghost Hua personally took action, coupled with Mr. Miao, there is no risk. The masked man's voice was cold and heavy, without any emotional fluctuations. Huang Fuzi nodded at the words and affectionately touched the puppet's face, with a hint of confusion in his eyes, but his voice remained calm as he said, Ali has reacted quickly this time and handled it very well. We must not make any mistakes here. It's not easy to deceive that old man Lu Yu. Sir's craftsmanship will definitely not be discovered. Huang Fuzi sighed at the words and gently touched the puppet's face with his hand. His eyes were full of reluctance, but the next second he moved his hands unbelievably fast. If Chen Qing were present, he might not even be able to see the shadow of the other person's hand. In just a few breaths, the puppet's face turned from Mrs. Huang to Wang Yi. How could it be? On the carriage, upon receiving a warning from Chen Qing's fingertips, Wang Yi's usually calm expression changed dramatically, but fortunately, he was also a person who had experienced countless storms and calmed down in an instant. Grasping Chen Qing's hand with the back hand, he wrote, "Have you seen Lord Wei Qi before?" "I haven't seen." Chen Qing also wrote in response, "But I know he's not Wei Chipping." "What is your basis?" "No, but adults, you have to trust me, otherwise we will die." Absurdity. Wang Yi's face turned pale, but he didn't shout out loud in the end. He still wrote in the other person's palm and retorted, "Wei Chipping and I have been friends for many years. Do you think he is fake? Is it because my memory is confused? Perhaps it's because the adults' memories are misplaced." At the critical moment, Chen Qing didn't care about hiding his foolishness and wrote, "Have you ever thought that perhaps you have seen a thousand-faced fox in the royal city? So you know the thousand-faced fox?" Wang Yi's expression was certain, and he replied with a sneer as he wrote, "You are indeed not an ordinary scholar." "Sir, this is not the time to dwell on this." Wang Yi sneered coldly and said, "Demonic words deceive the public. You said I have already seen a thousand-faced fox. Where is it? It was in the brothel where your group of Jinshi drank alcohol, or was it the palace maid I met when I reported to the palace? Don't tell me that I was only disturbed by exchanging a glance with that monster on the street, right?" Chen Qing shook his head and continued writing, "The thousand-faced fox can read people's memories, but it needs guidance to confuse them. As an adult, you are not an ordinary person. To change an adult's memory, you need a familiar face, a familiar environment, and preferably a familiar cause to change the corresponding memory." "What does that mean?" Wang Yi furrowed his brows, but still cooperated with the other person to write in his palm. "An environment that can leave adults unguarded, and an environment that can undoubtedly evoke adults' memories of Yu Qipeng, so as to change adults' memories of Yu Qipeng without leaving any traces. It's hard for adults to think about it. Is there such a place?" Wang Yi sneered and continued writing, "Then give me a prompt, what kind of place can achieve the effect you said? Have you ever visited the Yuqi mansion before leaving Beijing, sir?" Upon hearing this, Wang Yi's pupils narrowed, but he still sneered, "Do you want to say that the fox demon is inside the Yuqi mansion? Only in this way can it make sense." "What nonsense!" Wang Yi's patience was about to disappear, and he sneered, "Who the hell are you?" Chen Qing sighed and pointed out the window before continuing to write, "If you don't believe me, why don't you take a look outside the window?" Wang Yi frowned and moved his fingers lightly. The curtains of the carriage blew a slight gap, which was not large, but allowed the visually sharp Wang Yi to see the outside clearly. However, precisely because he could see clearly, he instantly felt a chill surge in his heart. Outside the window a wilderness, obviously far from the city, but they only got on the carriage in less than half an hour. How could they have reached the outside of the city? Under normal circumstances, being able to leave Liuzhou City in an hour is already considered fast. The carriage is abnormal. It's not normal for people driving carriages to be afraid. Taking a deep breath, Wang Ye's whole body was cold. He looked at Chen Qing again and found that he was still calm. He then picked up the other person's palm again and wrote, "When did you find out that Wei Qipeng had a problem?" "Before getting on the car." "Why didn't you say it back then?" "It's hard to say, he's too close to me." Wang Yi remained silent for a few seconds upon hearing this, then wrote, "Although the children of Yuqi Mansion are not prosperous, there are still strong men left behind. How can the demon fox sneak in?" Chen Qing picked up the other person's palm and directly wrote the words female dependents. Female relatives. Wang Yi frowned and pondered. In a family of blood, the women who married into the family were all ordinary people, and there were opportunities to be killed. After all, many noble women had the habit of going out to worship the Buddha and pray for the gods. He also remembered that the days when Cui Yen died were also the bustling days of the Buddhist temple. But before I left the capital, I had never seen the women of the Wei Qi family. Wang Yi wrote back, "According to your statement, if the other party wants to disturb my memory, they must have direct contact with me, right? Are you sure you haven't seen it?" Chen Qing wrote back and asked, "It's best for you to think again, sir." Wang Yi just wanted to write, but suddenly thought of something. "Yes, actually, there is. Old Tai Jun of Yuqi Prefecture, Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net, the senior of Yuqi Prefecture who is over 90 years old." Yes, he remembered. At that time, he needed the help of Wei Qipeng and went to the Wei Qi mansion to visit the former head of the Wei Qi family, who had already taken off Wei Qipeng's title as Wei Qi Jiawu Master. But Mr. Yuqi happened to be absent, and the guest was the oldest elder of the Yuqi mansion, the Grand Prince of Yuqi. This old lady had not seen anyone for many years, and at that time, he was truly surprised because the other party was quite enthusiastic and asked him several times about the process of how he and Wei Qipeng met. Because the other person is an elder, I also thought at that time that the other person wanted to know some details about making friends with my proud grandson, and I didn't hide them. Now, thinking about it, Wang Yi couldn't help but shudder, but still felt incredulous. He didn't dare to believe that the old prince of the Grand Yuqi mansion had been replaced by the thousand-faced fox. However, upon closer reflection, it became more and more likely. The identity of Lao Taijun is the least likely to be suspected and is also the most qualified to avoid the existence of younger generations. If you feel unwell, who in the Wei Qi family would doubt it? Long-term confusion may occur, but in the short term, this identity is the least likely to be revealed. Mr. Wang. Just as Wang Yi was in shock and uncertainty, the carriage stopped. And outside the carriage came a strange sneer. "Since you have already realized something is wrong, why pretend to be deaf and mute? How about getting off the carriage and having a chat?" "You're right." Wang Yi looked at Chen Qing, who looked pale but still pretended to be calm. "Do adults have a way to escape?" Chen Qing asked her most concerned question. Wang Yi looked at the other person with determination, looking at the young man who could roughly calculate the position of the thousand-faced fox from 1,000 miles away, and suddenly made a decision in his heart. Chapter 8. Insight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Wang is quite vigilant. He realized something was wrong so quickly. He truly deserves to be a disciple of Duke Song. In the suburban wilderness, there was silence and no one around. Wang Yi silently looked at the other person. Before, when the other person was wearing armor, he didn't think it was too strange. At this moment, the other person was removing armor, with exaggerated muscles and a face like a white-faced scholar, looking so strange and strange. That demon fox replaced the old prince of Yuqi mansion. Wang Yi looked at the other person with determination and asked. Disguised Wei Qipeng's face froze for a moment, and then he smiled and said, "I am truly a descendant of the Divine Machine Army Master. I admire how he can figure things out just like this." I admire. I admire. Wang Ye's mouth twitched slightly. He really embarrassed the teacher and didn't notice it at all. It seems that the thousand-faced demon fox not only has excellent abilities, but also has the ability to calculate people's hearts. It can even calculate that it will seek help from the Yuchi mansion, plan ahead, and wait for itself at the Yuchi mansion. But just thinking about it, when I came to Liuzhou myself, the most powerful and closest person to me was Yu Qiping. But how did the demon know about this information? To plan ahead, one must at least know in advance that this case is under their own responsibility in order to have such a smooth layout. Within the court people with them, and their power and position are not small. Is this the legendary ghost horse? Wang Yi pointed to the horses in the front row of the carriage and asked. The horse that revealed the truth at this moment was completely different from before. It was 4 meters tall, with a sturdy and elephant-like body, crimson eyes, and a black aura emanating from its entire body. Even the dragon horse that was driven by the royal city was not as powerful as before. It is rumored that ghosts and horses can shuttle between yin and yang, and can use the yin and yang shortcut to travel thousands of miles in just a few quarters of an hour. Mr. Wang has a wide range of knowledge. Fake Wei Qiping praised again, his face gentle and seemingly calm. So your extraordinary appearance is the ghost doll recorded in the book, right? Wang Yi recalled the record in Foreign Object Chronicles that there was a ghostly creature in the north, with a strange appearance and a strong physique like a 9-foot-tall man. However, his face was as young as a child, and his strength was infinite. Those who were powerful could compete with the ghostly Xianxia strength. But the guy in front of me is somewhat different from what is recorded in the book. Although his face is immature, it is not as exaggerated as a child's. The other party didn't answer this time, but smiled and took off their gloves. With a loud bang, the metal gloves fell to the ground and smashed a big hole. Wang Ye's pupils shrank, and he was afraid that the weight of the gloves would not exceed 10,000 pounds. Ah, it's much easier. The tall man's voice was cheering and jumping, and his voice became more like a child's voice. The cheering movements and posture were also the same, but the intensity was not. In the next moment, with a mischievous childlike look in their eyes, the ghost slapped Wang Yi with a slap. The speed and strength were so fast that the ground collapsed instantly, and the palm was still half a meter away from Wang Yi. The wind pressure generated by the force made half of Wang Yi's face contorted. But at that moment, the ghost's palm suddenly twisted and deformed, and the crisp sound of a fracture made it instantly retreat like an electric shock, emitting a scream of agony. Wang Yi's expression was cold and he lightly touched the face that had just been blown out of shape. If the force really hit him, there might not be any bone residue left, but in terms of strength, it is estimated that true Wei Qiping cannot match the opponent here. The power of the night elephant. The ghost doll's voice sounded mournful. Mr. Miao did not guess wrong. Lu Yu really passed that thing to you. Mr. Miao. Wang Yi looked around and took a deep breath. He also said, with such a delicate scheme, how could there be only one force at the last moment, the ghost boy? In the shadow of the forest, a thin figure shrouded in a black robe slowly walked out and stood shoulder to shoulder with the retreating ghost doll. I saw a withered arm extending from the other party's broad robe, and with just a gentle stroke on the ghost's arm, the already twisted and deformed arm began to visibly recover. The night elephant, one of the 36 heavenly gangs, is truly worthy of its reputation. The black-robed man said hoarsely, Duke of Song has finally found a suitable successor. He is so young that he can inherit the power of the night elephant. It's rare, rare. Thank you, senior. Wang Yi respectfully saluted. Warlock, one of the taboo professions that began to be passed down in the late Qing dynasty, has a very high level and can even use the technique of reversal that Song Gong does not know. He could see clearly that the opponent's means of recovering the injury of the ghost doll was a forceful reversal, a technique that could reverse time and space, only the top sorcerers from the previous dynasty could master. I don't know the name of the senior, can I pay homage to you? Wang Yi asked tentatively. What are the names of the fallen people to look up to? The other person chuckled self-deprecatingly, and even if you say it, you don't recognize it. Your master won't talk to you about us elderly people. Wang Yi remained silent. It's really difficult for someone like him to take action today. I'm curious, the black-robed man known as Mr. Miao asked hoarsely. You discovered something wrong in advance and used the flying star secret technique. Why did you give the opportunity to that bloodless ordinary person? At this moment, as the black robe pointed, the devils realized that the carriage had been shattered by the force of their own slap, but the guy inside who was with Wang Yi had disappeared without a trace at some point. Wang Yi remained slightly silent. Flying star is a secret technique for traveling through space, belonging to one of the top mysteries. With his own abilities, once used, it cannot be repeated within 7 days, which was the only escape opportunity he had just had. But at the last moment, he gave the opportunity to Chen Qing. The ghost horse travels on the yin-yang road, and using the flying star recklessly carries a great risk. Wang Yi looked up at the other person candidly. If he stays in the carriage, he will die. I may not be able to live with the flying star, so why not exchange it? Maybe we can live too. Ha ha ha, young people are actually greedy. Mr. Miao laughed heartily, but then said, but that's not the case, is it? What does senior mean? Although using flying stars on the yin-yang road carries risks, with your intelligence, you should be able to guess that if we set up such a situation, we will definitely face a close call to death. Escaping with flying stars will obviously increase our vitality. That kid is just an ordinary jinshi without blood. You are a disciple of Lu Yu, and you will not be able to show kindness to women unless. Mr. Miao paused and gave a sinister smile. He is very important. Wang Yi sighed upon hearing this, truly an old monster from the previous dynasty, not easy to deceive, but he can't care about that much anymore. It's hard to say if he can survive today. He can only pray that the kid doesn't waste the opportunity he gave with his life. Cough cough. On the other side, Chen Qing was lying on the ground vomiting profusely in an unknown suburb, unable to recover for a long time. Erhua, this is much more exciting than the Happy Valley pendulum. Chen Qing vomited roast at the same time. His head was dizzy, and even the Sichuan dialect of his previous life came out. After spitting for an unknown amount of time, even bitter bile water was vomited out, and it was only then that Chen Qing, who had closed her eyes, dared to carefully open her eyes and look around. I keep praying in my heart not to teleport through the underworld. In my past life, top players died in the underworld in countless batches. When she opened her eyes and saw the clear sky and white clouds, Chen Qing breathed a sigh of relief and continued to vomit with peace of mind. This person surnamed Wang is quite interesting. He even gave himself the opportunity to teleport at such a critical moment. Good people, if there is a chance, he must go to the grave and pay respects. After a delay of half a day, Chen Qing finally regained some energy and began to think about the whole matter. Wang Yi was tricked, most likely by Barbie, while the other party had a huge influence and was a sophisticated organization. There were many demons involved in the event, including the thousand-faced fox, ghost walls, ghost horses, and perhaps other even more bizarre things. The intelligence of the power system has also been obtained, that is, in addition to the power of bloodline, this world has also inherited the magic of sorcerers. Wang Yi used the method of space to teleport himself, and in his own design, only the Xianxia in the 36 Heavenly Gang can use the method of space. The Heavenly Gang and Earthly Sha are different from ordinary demons. They are terrifying beings that have already died, but because they are too powerful in front of them, they still have power in the world after death. The one who can use their power is the sorcerer, which was originally one of the paths that players can develop. Unexpectedly, NPCs in this world have developed it themselves. It seems that there is a reason why the human race can survive, but how many hidden roads have they developed? What level of development has it reached again? This can only be explored slowly in the future. What should we do now if the top priority is to take over? Chen Qing lay powerless on the grass, looking at the rising sun in the sky, lost in confusion. Before Wang Yi teleported himself, he asked himself to find the real Yu Qipeng. He gave himself a token, saying that the other party would escort him back to the capital once they received it. But where is this so simple? First of all, I haven't seen Wei Qipeng before. They don't even need to arrange 1,000-faced fox to modify their memory, so they can continue to arrange a fake scam at the general's mansion. Secondly, there is actually a fake general impersonating him for several days in the Tang Tang general's mansion. Whether or not Wei Qipeng is still alive is a problem. If the other party can arrange it this way, they must be able to control Wei Qipeng's movements in order to design it this way. Even if the real Wei Qipeng is not controlled, there are also many people from the other party around him. They are afraid that if they don't get close, they will be swallowed to the bone. Based on comprehensive judgment, Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net took the initiative to find a dead end for Yu Qipeng. But what if we don't look for it? Is it possible to go directly to Beijing? It's not possible either. Chen Qing shook his head. The other party had set up such a bureau, and it was clear that there was sufficient intelligence. It was necessary to know in advance that Wang Yi would take on this case in order to arrange for the 1,000-faced fox to wait for Wang Yi at the Yuqi mansion, and also to arrange for a fake general to infiltrate the general's mansion. This represents that the opponent's influence in the royal city is not small. As a weak scholar with no intelligence, I rashly returned to Beijing and died faster. What should I do? Chen Qing's face became increasingly weak, and he really wanted to take a nap to escape. But he knows he can't. Time is tight, and the royal guard who sent his family to take office will come back to find Wang Yi. If he can't find it. Wait. Chen Qing suddenly sat up, thinking of something. That's not right. Are these guys putting in so much effort just to kill Wang Yi? What is the significance? A young minister of Dali Temple died here, and the royal guards will report it, which will definitely cause a shock. This will only force stronger people from above to come here. Can we have such a great deal of energy and create such a delicate game just to compete with them? This is illogical. Chen Qing rubbed his head and began to think carefully. Unless they can you create a fake Wang Yi. At the thought of this, Chen Qing felt everything suddenly brighten up. Is it possible? Perhaps most people would think it impossible to create a fake Wang Yi to deceive the current emperor and civil and military officials. That must be crazy. But Chen Qing knew that among the monsters he designed, there was a kind of existence that could be achieved. Chapter 9. Chen Qing's whereabouts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the imperial study of Wangcheng, the newly appointed emperor had a rare moment of leisure and started playing chess, with his most trusted hero, Lu Yu, the Duke of Song, playing against him. Lu Aiqing, the letter of your beloved disciple has been transmitted back. Let me continue to select a concubine for the crown prince as usual. Don't worry, it's quite like the style you had when I loved you, haha. Upon hearing this, Lu Yu shook his head and said, I am arrogant. I dare to entrust such a big matter to you. I will scold you severely when I come back. Hey, don't be too harsh. Young people have to go through things to become successful. The old emperor was relieved and took 2 steps before saying, I plan to choose a concubine for the crown prince as usual according to Wang Xiaoqing's words. This. Lu Yu's movements paused slightly. It seems that our strategist is getting old, not as brave as your disciple, the emperor joked. I am being cautious. Lu Yu remained serious and said, if I find out that this matter may be related to Huang Fuzi, it may not be easy for that person to participate. The crown prince's selection of concubines is a matter of great importance, and there must be no mistakes. I also know this. The emperor sighed, but now that everything is in vain, it is the most important time to stabilize people's hearts. If the crown prince does not choose a concubine for a long time, there may be criticism. As you know, some people can't hold back long ago. How about I personally go there? How did you become even more anxious than me, this guy? The emperor gave the other person a bad look and said, they all said that young people should have more experience. Whether it's Wang Yi or Yu Qipeng, they are the future pillars that I have high expectations for. When something happens, let us old people come. How can we resist it in the future? When mentioning Wei Qipeng, Lu Yu's frown slightly relaxed. Although the child of the Wei Qi family may not have a good brain, in terms of strength, there may not be any family leader who can fight better than this one in the past 5 generations. If his disciple joins him, at least safety can be guaranteed. Then according to your Majesty's words, let's take a look. Lu Yu showed a rare smile and said, look at me, this immature disciple, how much responsibility I can have. Is it alive? In the small courtyard, Master Huang carved his wooden body without looking back. His craftsmanship was exquisite, and his face was carved like a real person. It was said to be wood, but more like a human bone. And at this moment, arriving at the small courtyard were the 2 people who clashed with Wang Yi, the tall ghost Dao, and Mr. Miao, who completely shrouded his body in a black robe. Living. Mr. Miao's hoarse voice rang out, at a young age, I have already used the power of Xianxia to that extent, and my qualifications are not inferior to Lu Yu. Unfortunately. There are so many unfortunate people in this world. Huang Fuzi blew the wood shavings on the puppet's face and walked over with a small knife. He first glanced at Mr. Miao and whispered, are you okay? He is not worried that the young minister of Dali Temple will harm this one. After all, no matter how good his qualifications are, he has only been in the martial arts for a few years. How can he compare with the old monster in front of him? Warlocks should avoid going against the sky the most. Forcefully changing the destiny of a person with strong luck can lead to severe backlash, but Wang Yi is the one with extremely strong luck. If you have something to do and nothing to do, you won't be able to live for a few years. You don't have to worry about me. Upon hearing this, Huang Fuzi nodded and gestured for the ghostly child next to him to put Wang Yi down. The ghost calmly placed Wang Yi next to the puppet, and Huang Fuzi approached, skillfully cutting his face with a small knife in his hand. Wang Ye's whole body twitched, and a whole face was cut off. The cut was extremely complete, and one could even feel the skin still wriggling in Huang Fuzi's hand. Huang Fuzi covered the skin on his carved puppet, and the next second, the blood vessels on the skin quickly connected to the puppet like finding a home. In a moment, the original puppet face and human skin perfectly blended, leaving no trace of the puppet. It looked like it's just a real face. Good craftsmanship. Mr. Miao coughed lightly. Even if those great craftsmen from the imperial ministry studied for another 100 years, they wouldn't have the same craftsmanship as Mr. Miao. It's just talent. Huang Fuzi shook his head gently and carefully adjusted his newly covered face. How long will it take to finish the whole thing? The ghost doll frowned and asked. At least 3 days. Huang Fuzi squinted his eyes and said, to observe the appearance of bones, every bone in the body must fit perfectly, and there must be no difference in size. Then, it is necessary to cloth its internal organs and fill it with flesh and blood, in order to achieve perfection. Even a slight difference cannot deceive Lu Yu. That's too true. Will it really become Wang Yi? Mr. Miao asked a very curious question. Well. Huang Fuzi smiled and said, I haven't done it before. Mr. Miao nodded and then said, we ran away. Can you run another one from your hands? Huang Fuzi was stunned. Well, Wang Yi used the flying star to send him away, but he can't stop it. He's probably going to find Wei Qipeng. That's okay. Huang Fuzi continued to focus on his work without looking up. My student is just an ordinary person and can't walk up to Wei Qipeng. Is it an ordinary person? Mr. Miao's voice was slightly puzzled. From the intelligence, it can be seen that Chen Qing is indeed an ordinary person, not a family of bloodlines. It is even more impossible to say that he is a sorcerer inheritor. There are countless sorcerer inheritors that can be preserved now, and it is impossible for him to fall into the wilderness. There are many of their people planted around Wei Qipeng. In theory, a weak scholar cannot get close to Wei Qipeng, but Lu Yu, this disciple, is not a fool. He gave the opportunity to others even though he had a chance to escape, which means that Chen Qing is not so simple. But it's indeed a bit eerie. Huang Fuzi seemed to feel something was not quite right. After all, ordinary people, it is impossible to see through Ali's illusion. Then let me go. Cough cough cough. Mr. Miao's coughing voice became heavier, causing Huang Fuzi, who was working, to furrow his brows. Your body. Let the ghost run this time. I'm not quite at ease. Mr. Miao shook his head and said, the young minister of Dali Temple has good luck. There may still be some mistakes in the past 3 days, so we need to keep an eye on Wei Qipeng. Upon hearing these words, Huang Fuzi ultimately did not persuade him again. If there is still something that can be overturned in Liuzhou, it is the young man from the Yuqi family. If the devils really want to keep an eye on him, he still cannot rest assured. Take it easy. Huang Fuzi sighed, the only ones who followed King Qin back then were our old friends. Mr. Miao, who had already walked to the door, paused when he heard the words, but the next second he didn't say anything and walked straight out of the door. Uncle, is this where it is? Outside the city of Liuzhou, Chen Qing was sweating profusely. Following the direction pointed by a 60-year-old man, he looked towards a remote mountain slope and asked. That's Panlongpo. The old man grinned and said, there aren't many people who know this place now. The little scholar needs to be careful. It's said that there are really dragons under this big mountain. Have you seen it, my father? Law. Chen Qing asked curiously. I haven't seen it before, but it's rumored to be like this. The old man shook his head and said, there isn't even a wild rabbit in this vast mountain forest. It's so strange that I don't even have the idea of hunting. If it weren't for something in town, how could it be so evil? That's it too. Chen Qing nodded along with haha, but her heart became more and more certain that she had found the right location. Liuzhou is a place surrounded by mountains and water, with excellent feng shui. The surrounding towns and villages live well by the mountains and water, except for the generation of Daqing Mountain, which is terrifyingly desolate. Birds and animals are not close here, and the farmers are unable to grow. The vast mountain range is almost deserted. To be honest, if no one leads the way, Chen Qing may not be able to find the place he wants to go after wandering here for half a month. It must be said that he has some luck. Not only is the location of the Feixing teleportation close, but he also happened to encounter a group of carpenters who came to cut wood near Daqing Mountain. Daqingshan has nothing, and there are quite a few good trees that have been around for hundreds of years. However, because they are far away, the carpenters in the surrounding towns usually come only once in a few months, and Chen Qing happened to meet a wave of them. Chen Qing didn't think it was a coincidence. After successfully arriving at Panlongpo, he thought it should be due to luck. At a young age, Wang Yi became the young minister of Dali Temple and inherited the sorcerer tradition of Xianxia. His luck is extraordinary. If such a person encounters a crisis of life and death, heaven will intentionally or unintentionally create a lot of vitality. Of course, whether one can be certain or not depends on people's interests. This is one of the worldview templates designed by Chen Qing's partner, and it also made Chen Qing consciously feel that the reason why he is so smooth now may be because the righteous young master of Dali Temple has not died yet. Of course, this is also speculation. Chen Qing is not sure if his current choice is really a way of survival. Thinking of this, Chen Qing looked at this huge mountain range with emotion. After more than 20 years, watching the cage that I had personally designed on the computer appear in front of me, I feel extraordinary. It's wonderful but also a bit scary because the things inside are not good. If we follow the original script, this thing will be released by a passing traveler and ultimately destroy Liuzhou City. Chapter 10. Things Under Pressure in the Mountains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It should be is that right here. As the sky was about to darken, Chen Qing felt a bit anxious. If he couldn't find it now, it would be dark and he would have to endure all night in this place where birds don't poop. Although there won't be any wild beasts taking him away here, it's cold. It's only March now, and even though he has been exercising since childhood, he doesn't think his body can withstand the cold spring night in the wilderness. Finally, just as the sun was about to set, the sickle sold by the carpenter to Chen Qing struck a relatively empty spot. Chen Qing's eyes lit up and he accelerated his pace. There were burnt marks on this area, proving that someone had been here in the past 2 years. As for who the person came from, Chen Qing had a guess in her heart. The face with a humorous personality and how much care she had for herself came to mind. Next, it's time for verification. As the newly formed thorns outside split open, the covered cave here exposed itself, which was very large. Upon entering, one would find that the cave had a light height of over 10 meters, which was even more exaggerated than many natural stalactites. It was truly a unique cave. As Chen Qing got closer inside, he felt the temperature constantly rising. This is not a principle of being warm in winter and cool in summer. It is obvious that there is something in the center of the cave that is emitting vigorous heat. Chen Qing approached step by step, and the familiar and unfamiliar scene around him made him even more aware. If he listened carefully at this moment, he would find dragon chants coming from the entrance behind him. Rumors are not unfounded. The dragon chant often rings at dusk, and villagers who pass by logging often hear it. Therefore, there is a legend that the water faucet was suppressed here. There are indeed dragons here, but they are not being suppressed, but used to suppress the things inside. Chen Qing walked to the center of the cave, looking at the extremely ingenious cave core and the beautiful art form runes. He couldn't help thinking that the penguins' art is really awesome, and they can draw all kinds of scenes. Has Daddy finally arrived? A childish voice broke Chen Qing's sigh, like a child of 3 or 4 years old. It sounded soft and sticky, but Chen Qing couldn't help but stand up with goosebumps. As a designer, he knew very well what this guy with a child's accent was. The real name here is Qinglong Mountain, which is a mountain cage formed by the power of the Qinglong in the 36 Heavenly Gang. The last generation of Qinglong sorcerers in the game do all of this. If players find this place, they can inherit the Qinglong tradition. Of course, we also have to face a monster that even the last generation of Qinglong warlocks had to fill their lives to suppress. Daddy, can you spend more time with me this time? I'll give you any part of my body you want. The child's voice begged with a heart-wrenching pleading tone, but the moment the other person saw Chen Qing, their voice changed instantly. You're not Daddy. Although it was still the cute voice of a child, it was already incredibly cold. It was a bone-chilling chill that could make even the beasts within dozens of miles afraid to approach. Despite knowing that the thing was being pressed down and wouldn't harm herself, Chen Qing was also frightened by the chill and sat on the ground with weak legs. This hasn't been unblocked yet. Chen Qing could see clearly that in the middle, locked by a dragon-like chain, was a child who looked extremely cute. Of course, only his head was cute, and his lower body was terrifyingly majestic. Ghost Dolls. It is a monster created by oneself based on the character of Neza in the 100,000 Cold Jokes. It is one of the 7 great ghost generals who forcefully broke through from the underworld to the human world. It has great power, with the power of the 9 dragons, and can be compared to the ghost Xianxia among the 3 great ghost kings. In the original plot, this thing was accidentally released by a cunning itinerant merchant, who used it to make money. However, he couldn't control his madness, resulting in the entire Liuzhou being slaughtered. The 100,000 strong army of the previous dynasty couldn't capture it, and eventually devoured blood and evolved into the final form, becoming the 4th Ghost King. He was one of the most difficult bosses for players to fight against in the early stage. Is the father in your mouth? Huang Fuzi. Chen Qing suppressed his fear and forced himself to speak up and ask. There is only one opportunity, and if one cannot overcome their fear at the beginning, the opportunity to approach and speak may not be there again when the other person is truly hostile. The ghost doll tied by the iron chain looked up in confusion, rarely seeing creatures that were scared and didn't run away. The previous one was Dad, and this was the second one. What I'm talking about is Huang Fuzi, an old man who likes to wear plain white clothes. His beard is neatly trimmed, and there is a big mole between his eyebrows on his face. Well, there is also a scar on his right hand. Do you know Dad? The ghost doll became curious, and her guard gradually faded from her face, revealing a cute and curious expression with obvious excitement. Chen Qing was relieved, climbed to the front and sat down. She carefully observed the authentic ghost, which was exactly the same as the model she had designed. She had a cute girl's baby face and a body that would make a strong man ashamed. Doll. I asked you, Chen Qing asked in a low voice, has your father in your mouth ever cut your skin, dug out your heart and liver, or even opened your bones? The ghost was taken aback for a moment, gritted his teeth and remained silent for a while. It took him some time before he whispered, Daddy was trying to save me. Sure enough, Chen Qing's eyes flashed a bit clearly, just like what she thought. When I realized that the fake Wei Qipeng looked a bit like a ghost doll, I guessed that the real ghost doll didn't look like that. It was a counterfeit, but it was very real because it could control ghosts and horses. There was only one thing that could create such a level of counterfeit. That is one of the 5 demon craftsmen I designed myself. Mr. Painted Skin. This thing, like the 1,000-faced fox, is a rare monster that can be imitated by puppets, not just humans. If the level is high enough, even demons and ghosts can be imitated, provided that there are enough materials. If the 5 internal organs, flesh and blood, and bone marrow of living things can be preserved, the skillful Mr. Painted Skin can even create an identical existence. It is usually difficult for high-level demons and ghosts to handle, because no one will give you their own flesh and blood, but ghost dolls are an exception. The most powerful ability of ghost walls is not their strength, but their regenerative ability. As long as their core is still there, they can be perfectly reborn even by peeling and crushing bones. This was also made by Chen Qing based on the legend of Neza. But I didn't expect that one day these two things would come together, and the other could use the emotional weakness of the ghost to deceive the other's flesh and blood organs. Can we create 2 if we give the other party some time? 3. Even set up a ghost army. Can it be considered a bug? Chen Qing touched his chin, but unfortunately he couldn't patch it now, so he had to intervene manually. That person is lying to you. Nonsense. The ghost doll's eyes turned red in an instant, and her cute facial veins erupted, becoming ferocious. Am I talking nonsense, child? Aren't you clear in your heart? Chen Qing squinted her eyes and said, you know very well, he's not your father. Shut up. The ghost doll roared loudly, making Chen Qing's eardrums skip a beat. If it weren't for the mountain barrier still present, Chen Qing felt that just this roar would have shattered his internal organs. You've seen him. Chen Qing took a deep breath and took a few steps closer, which stunned the originally angry ghost Hua. Usually when I go crazy, everything around me instinctively withdraws, and everything is like this. In the past, the underworld without sunlight was like this, and after coming to this world, it was also like this, including the person who claimed to be my father in the first 2 years since I was born. I have been angry and have dared to approach myself, as if only the mother, you have seen him before. Chen Qing smiled hard and said, that guy also ran out of the underworld. He has seen you before, so he knows you. Of course, you also know him, so you know, he's not his father. The ghost doll remained silent as he watched the people approaching him step by step, feeling a bit confused and even forgetting his anger for a moment. And then, finally, as the person approached him, he spoke up and looked at the other person seriously. What do you want to say? Chen Qing looked at the child who suddenly calmed down, his legs trembling slightly. The current distance from the barrier was not effective, as the other party could kill him at any time. Sorry, I'm a bit scared, my legs are a bit weak. Chen Qing, who couldn't hold her back, sat down in front of her and smiled apologetically. Giwa was taken aback and realized that this guy, do you know you're afraid? Afraid, why approach? Because we're going to be together in the future. Chen Qing smiled and said, we have to overcome this. If we're always afraid, how can we be together? Together. The ghost doll looked at the other person in a daze, very incredulous, with a cautious voice. You want to be with me? Ah. Chen Qing took a breath and said, I need you, so come with me in the future. I'll take care of you, but you have to listen to me. You have to listen to me for everything, okay? Take care of me. A porcelain doll-like face completely froze. He has lived for thousands of years, and for the first time he heard someone say they want to support him. It's also the first time I've heard someone so honest discussing with him. Previously, there were intentional approaches to him, but they were all deceiving him, including the person who claimed to be his own father. He could actually tell that he was not smart, but his eyes were different from others. He could see the light emanating from others. He can actually see who is deceiving him and who is afraid of him. But this person is different. He had a black light that was afraid of himself, but also a white light. The white light was very weak, but it was also very warm. He had never encountered this feeling in 1,000 years, and it was only the light that was present in his father and mother. Do you want to raise me? The ghost asked cautiously again. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. He asked softly, afraid that if he spoke too loudly, he would scare away the white light. Chen Qing also looked at the other person cautiously, feeling uneasy in his heart. The strategy of Giwa is both simple and difficult. Giwa yearns for family, so if you approach him with kindness, it is easy for him to treat you as a family member. However, the difficulty lies in the fact that Giwa is not easy to deceive. Because his eyes can see through people's hearts. Anyone who is not sincere and uses them will eventually become a victim of bloodshed. Chen Qing didn't know how sincere he was, because emotions are the most difficult thing for people to grasp, but he knew that he had feelings for something he had personally created. As a creator, he was very aware of the other person's pitiful background. It is precisely because of this that, while being afraid, one will also have compassion and closeness. He doesn't know if this is considered sincere, or if it's considered good intentions with the devils, so he's also gambling. I'll take care of you. Chen Qing mustered up the courage again and stood up, extending his right hand to look at the other person seriously. I'll take care of you, and you'll all listen to me from now on, won't it be possible? The ghost widened her eyes, and the white light on her body grew larger, afraid that her own light would weaken. He has never met anyone, except for his father and mother. A sour feeling that hasn't been around for a long time surged in my heart. I can eat very well. Chen Qing looked up, and the child's face was filled with tears and runny nose at some point. It's okay, I'm an official. I'll be very wealthy in the future and can afford to support you. Well. What will I call you in the future? Well, let's do it this way. Before we find your real dad, from now on. Just call me Dad.